Hello, patrons. It is Tuesday, April 17th, 2018. Here's your cup of Jones. Water in this cup, smoothie in the other cup. We're going to take a little sip of water. When you just eat lots of blueberries, sometimes you just gotta clean the palate. Audio people are like, yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for starting off your little podcast. It's a live stream, but for me it's a podcast because I just listen to it. Oh yeah! What's up, everybody? We've begun Cup of Joneses before, and I've explained the fatigue, the sleepiness, of running a Patreon, of having this wacky job, and I am tired today for 3 words. One of those is of, one of those is war, and one of those is God. And you can put those in whatever order you think might apply to a lack of sleep. No regrets, but it's a big week. We're going to talk about Of War God a little bit, because the editorial today will be focused on spoilers. Because a lot of people were complaining about that we had too many spoilers in our review of God of War. And it was fascinating hearing that. Fascinating reading all of Sony's requirements for what we wanted to, what they did not want to put in that review, all of Huber's concerns, actually watching the game myself and not playing it for the first part, and then following that through this week, even though I'm still not done with it, playing through the entirety of God of War and realizing what a small percentage of that game you actually see in that review. But War of God. It's a mobile game out there. There's got to be a War of God mobile game somewhere. So that will be our editorial for today. Tonight, 6 p.m., twitch.tv/EasyAllies, we will be sitting down, some of us will be sitting down, putting a VR headset on our heads and playing Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, which is a fascinating VR game. A VR game that definitely focuses more on concept than visuals. If you are not familiar with it, the gag, you don't have to play it in VR, but I think it is especially magic in VR. The gag is that one of you you're on a bomb squad. One of you is in a room that you cannot escape, trying to defuse a bomb, and the only information that you have is a very large something. I printed it out once, and I might have to print it out again. I printed it out once, and I put it somewhere, being like, I'm probably going to use that again. But of course, when I actually need it, I have no idea where that printout is. But you have a big manual of the different types of bombs and what to do when you see different types of bombs. But if you play it right, either by not looking at the screen or by having a VR headset on, the person with the guide cannot see the bomb. The person who sees the bomb cannot see the guide, and so they have to communicate. And if you have ever watched our group streams on Tuesday night, 6 p.m., twitch.tv/EasyAllies, you know that we are really good at communicating. So that should be a very interesting stream tonight. Thank you for selecting that, our lovely community. This Thursday, we're having a stream. Make sure you print the manuals. You'll need multiple. You'll need multiple? I need multiple manuals. You need the one manual so everybody's screaming at that one person. I kind of like having the one manual. I don't know. Multiple manuals? It seems like cheating. We'll maybe try 2 manuals. I've never played Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes with more than 1 manual before, but I definitely play with more than one person. You don't want it to go well, is the point. This Thursday, from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m., 9 hours, 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. Pacific time and specific time, twitch.tv/EasyAllies, we will be streaming for 9 hours straight, and we will be asking people for money. The reason why we'll be asking people for money, that will be different from the other times, meaning every day of every week, of every year, that we ask for money, is because E3 is coming up, and we thought we would do a pledge drive for equipment, because E3 is very important to us. E3 is obviously a big tentpole event for Easy Allies for the year, and while we have new ideas about E3, while we will be doing, I think, a better job of covering E3 than Easy Allies has done, I believe we improve that coverage every single year. We've done this before. It's a good time to kind of assess where we are with equipment. And so we're going to be doing a drive we are calling Better Stuff Before E3. That will begin at 1 p.m. again on Thursday. We will be... so there's lots of other stuff about that that you will find out during the stream. One is specifically what equipment that we want to get. So We're not just going to blast a big high number on the screen. $10,000 will be our max goal. Meaning if we hit that goal, we can buy a lot of fun, new, exciting equipment that obviously will not only benefit us during E3, but will benefit us for all of the live streams that we do for shows that we shoot and produce that way. But at the same time, you know, we don't need to hit that. That is a goal. That's something that we want to throw out to people that support us, and maybe some people that don't or haven't yet, and possibly inspire them to financially help us reach some of the goals that we want to hit as far as equipment is concerned. And then, however we do, that will then apply to the equipment that we get. So if we only make a little bit of money, that we're still going to be able to invest a little bit more in equipment that we typically do during E3. Two other things that are very exciting. One is, we haven't specifically listed the challenges upon ourselves that we will undertake during that stream. If you have watched pledge drives with us before, and I believe we've only done one, possibly two. It is not something we commonly do. We did one previously on Patreon, and we set up, I'm just blanking on what you would call them, but during a drive, goals that you would set up on a drive, tiers, as far as if we make this much money during this pledge drive, we will do this. And those are fun. Some of those are gaming challenges. Some of those are a look into our past at some things that you might not have seen before. Specifically, Ian and Kyle and myself are putting forth some pretty embarrassing, some eye-opening footage and material from Easy Allies past. So I'm looking forward to seeing that stuff. I'm hoping we hit those goals, obviously not only financially, but because, I would like to see that stuff. Hopefully Ben and Huber, I think, are throwing a couple fun things in the ring as well. So yeah, there will be incentives. We have some, somebody looked up incentivize in the thesaurus and gave me some, I didn't unfortunately list them here, but hopefully I will not be returning to that word too often. But yeah, tune in Thursday, join us if you will. And if you cannot support us more financially, if you can't support us financially at all, outside of possibly the $1 that maybe you give us every month, or maybe this is the first month you have given us $1, just give me a fun, jolly time. Obviously, one of the best things that you can do to help us spread the word of Easy Allies is to spread the word of Easy Allies and just let people know what we're doing. And so that might be a good time to be like, Easy Allies is fun. I like these crazy weirdos. You might want to tune in on Thursday and see what they're all about. And finally, we announced previously in the promo video, excellent promo video that's kind of different from the promo stuff that we've done previously, more in the vein of a Funhouse or Kind of Funny, produced by Mr. Ian Hanks, so thank you very much for rendering that big fiery explosion of a promo. We said in the promo that we're going to not be announcing, we're going to announce our new Patreon goals and rewards at a later date. We will be kicking off our stream on Thursday with that information. So Thursday's going to be a big day for Easy Allies. Hopefully it'll be a big day for us, meaning new equipment that we can get. And pretty good zebra in that video if you haven't seen it. I'm curious if people know where that zebra came from. It wasn't Easy Allies. It'll also be a big day because we'll kind of lay out goals that we have for our Patreon goals and rewards specifically, but kind of like what we have in mind for the next step of our Patreon. And we have had extensive meetings discussing that stuff on and offline. My brain gets warm and hurts. It kind of like, it's like when E3 is over, speaking of E3, my brain will often get warm, and I'll be like driving on the freeway, be like, my head's hot. This is fascinating, just because there's so much stimulus and so much information to process when you're at a big show like E3, and especially if you're at a big show like E3 that starts on like Saturday, Sunday, and then goes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. By the end of day Thursday, you're pretty wiped in many different ways. And I was pretty wiped just talking with the guys and figuring all this stuff out, because there really wasn't one solution to things. There really wasn't just one issue that needed to be addressed. Every single show was up for review. Every single goal that we have, every single thing we use to encourage our audience to support us was up for review. And so really everything was on the table. Every possibility could be considered. Everything is permitted. Nothing is, what's this Assassin's Creed slogan. So yeah, I think that we have a very clear vision that we enjoy moving forward, and we have several things that we want to do that we have been encouraged. A couple of them were actually encouraged in last episode of Cup of Jones. People were like, I really think you should do this moving forward. And we considered it. We talked about it at great length. We either decided now's not the right time, or that's something that we need to review moving forward. So we will have a couple new goals, couple new rewards, and some changes coming to Patreon that I hope you will understand, appreciate, enjoy, and for some of you will light a fire to finally be the time to up that pledge or to create a pledge if you have not. All of you have, because you are here on Patreon watching me, and thank you for doing so. Lovely to have you all on this Tuesday morning. Let's get down to business. I'm going to read the comment that suggested it, but somebody had an excellent comment that should have been implemented the first episode of Cup of Jones. But we're finally getting into it now. It's never too late to make improvements. And that is to do the more business-related questions first on Cup of Jones. So I have divided the feedback that I received from people into two categories, business and personal. We will be reviewing all of the business questions first, and then we'll be getting to silly Batman, Disney, comic booky, you know, what's your favorite cup of coffee type of questions. So yeah, this is a business meeting. Let's get down to business. Alexander Zirianov, who very frequently opens Cup of Jones with his comments. I've noticed that very few EZA patrons are actually using Patreon rewards they are paying for. For example, there are 664 patrons pledging to you $10 a month, but there are usually about 30 to 40 submissions for Community Showcase, some of which are coming from the patrons of higher tiers. I imagine you are very happy that you don't have to read 1,000 comments during each show. But at the same time, this probably means that all those patrons are not interested in giving rewards and therefore more likely to drop from their tier, which is an interesting perspective. Are you satisfied with patrons, I'm assuming the average patron's involvement in current reward tiers? How do you find the right balance between making a reward appealing and making it possible to deliver? Possible to deliver is, there's not a perspective as far as how easy something would be to deliver. Something has to be easy to deliver. Not easy to deliver, but possible to deliver. Like, we would never have a goal or something that we'd be like, hey, and hopefully we can do that. You know, like, obviously it's got to be something that is close to something that we've produced in the past, is something that we feel comfortable and are more than anything excited to do. We don't want to set up any, we don't want to pitch any shows, we don't want to work on anything that we're always going to be like dragging our feet. And that was also part of this kind of analysis of where we're at with Patreon right now that we've been doing this past month. Had a lot of that to do with it, where it's like, is there anything that any of you other 8 Easy Allies don't enjoy doing? We shouldn't do that. Or if we do it in a way that you don't enjoy, we should stop doing it that way. But is it going to fit comfortably into our production schedule is number one before we decide anything else. And then obviously the whole concept, we wouldn't even think up the thing unless we knew it was going to be rewarding. And obviously things are set up at tiers. You know, we are at currently above 41K, which is wonderful on Patreon, but we have some fresh new sponsors coming in that I'm excited about next month. Yeah, is that reward going to be something that is appealing to people that in order? So the new tiers that we are setting up, you know, at a potential, I'm not like quoting myself, but at a 41, 42, 43, 44, as they go up, obviously those rewards need to be more appealing, because why keep pledging? Why up your pledge if you don't want the thing that's higher than the thing you're at more than the thing you're at, if that makes sense. But yeah, you bring up a good point, Alexander, because I think, I mean, I've never pledged to Easy. I am not a patron of Easy Allies. I am, you know, our account is the one that manages it, and so I don't know what it is like to pledge to Easy Allies. I don't. We try to get inside the heads of people. I don't have to blow my nose. My nose is very itchy. I don't know why. Excuse me. Scratching the nose. Sorry to do that on camera. So I can't say definitively why each person decides to be a patron of Easy Allies and why they decide to be at that tier. We definitely have exit surveys. We definitely have had comments from people that are at a certain tier and then drop or leave Patreon for specific reasons and then state, here's why I pledged. And so it is always nice to get that information. We never get sick of that. It's never a bad day to let us know why you pledged at your specific level. DMs would be lovely. You can also do that on Cup of Jones if you would like. But there's no question that some people pledge at a certain tier just because financially it works out for them. And so we've had successes and less so at some tiers. Just adding numerically, obviously the $2 was one example. We were like, it would benefit us to have a $2 tier, to have people that pledge just at that level, because some people can give $1 and some people are like, I can give one more dollar, but that's probably about it. And so, you know, you look at, obviously you look at all of our YouTube patrons, technically. All the people who subscribe to us on YouTube, 150,000 of them, and if all of those people gave us $1, we would be getting $150,000 a month. And so, how do you encourage those people to at least give $1? How do you encourage someone who's at the $1 level to maybe up to 5 or 10? Just by creating that opportunity to economically make that viable for themselves. It doesn't necessarily matter what they get at the $10 level. It's crazy what people expect at certain levels. Some people donate at the $1 level and expect the world of us. Some people, like your Mangoes and your Elphanises, donate at the $500 level and think we're just great, think everything's fine. You know, if you say my name during the podcast, that's great. I don't really have anything to sell. I just want to financially support you. And so, in some ways, you know, obviously we want to make those rewards rewarding for the people involved, but at the same time we want to create as many different tiers as possible to accommodate people financially to support us at whatever level that they can. So a little bit of both. That doesn't surprise me. I think one of the other things too is, speaking from experience, it can be stressful producing things that are guaranteed on a monthly basis, and so I think for the community showcase, sometimes people want that opportunity at the $10 level, and then the end of the month comes up and they're like, nah, I don't have time. You know, I hear that from a lot of people. They're like, I wanted to make something, but and even at the $1 level, you get the opportunity to ask questions here on Cup of Jones, and thankfully, however 1,000, 2,000, however many people, I think about half of our Patreon is here at the $1 level. Or it might be the 5. Case in point, hundreds and hundreds of people are here at the $1 level, potentially enjoying Cup of Jones, and I don't get hundreds of questions every week. I would not be able to do this if I did. I'd definitely have to space that out. Oh, Cup of Jones every 2 weeks. Just imagining that, where I only take questions 1 week or something. Yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, there we go. Lots of answers to that question. Craig O'Connor, I'm sure you all have tons of ideas for new shows, features, etc. Have you considered doing a pilot season where you would take a week off from the regular Easy Allies content? Uh-oh, that's warning, and produce only new shows to see what the community responds to, or alternatively, even just a stream where you all pitch new ideas for shows to the community and see what is popular to help decide what to focus on? Sure, making the first episode of something is always the most difficult episode that you could make of that show, so working on a show for a couple weeks would not be indicative of how hard it would be to produce that show on a regular basis. So we would put much more work into that first episode. But we are going to be doing that. There are a couple goals that we will be setting up, some tiers that are show related that we will be creating pilots for. We will be producing episodes of that just to give you a sense of like what that is, to give you a refresher of what to expect from that tier. If you were like, hey, I might be considering upping my pledge, or I think I want to get them to 44K. It's like, well, here's what will happen if you get us to 44K. So in that case, I think pilots are worth it. And for that reason, I think it would be a good idea to let people know what to expect from our different tiers. But at the same time, let me get to the actual text. Take a week or two off from the regular Easy Allies content terrifies me, because there have been all sorts of reasons why we have potentially dipped in the past financially, just either why it's either from viewership or from sponsorship. And taking 2 weeks off, meaning not doing the podcast, not doing a frame trap that week, I think I think there would be backlash. I think people would be upset about that, even if they got a bunch of fun new shows. Craig, I think that would be something. Let's get to the studio first before we do that. I think that would be, and that's kind of one of the issues that were not issues, but that was kind of one of the topics that kept coming up. Is this a time where we really want to go to our community and just kind of do what they tell us to do? Or, and obviously you never want to do that completely, you never want to run your business just entirely on what the community is screaming about. But, and then on the other side of the spectrum, you know, do we want to be producing shows that we want to do? Is this something that we think is smart? Is it finally time to make those decisions that we have been putting off for a long time? And so, But it is a fascinating idea, and potentially if we do get to a point where we are just kind of oversaturated with shows, it's time to maybe cull the herd and kind of focus on our strengths, get rid of our weaknesses, then that might be the time to streamline things and go to the community and be like, hey, here's a bunch of potentially new stuff. What do you like? Warm Feelings, do you have a preferred word cap for Cup of Jones? 300, 400 is always nice, but the same, go watch, read the disclaimers for the community showcase, and I always appreciate about that length. You do a good job vocally condensing points, but given you're the official narrator for the majority of EZA content, and tasked with reading lengthy scripts often, I wonder if the chapter length comments sometimes posted here are strain on you mentally straining reading. There are obviously special cases, but in regards to regular contributors, this is something we should be considerate of. There you go, Warm Feelings. You nailed it. That was the perfect Cup of Jones post. One thing that you don't see, that I don't get a lot of backlash for, so I guess people either understand it or don't notice it, but I do a lot of trimming. One thing that amuses me that I keep in the community showcase questions, because people are paying a premium for that, but I omit from the Cup of Jones questions, is almost every Cup of Jones questions opens with, "Hi Jones, here's something I've been thinking about lately." I usually, we don't need that. I get right to the question. Or some people actually, I had one person, I copied and pasted the entire post anyway, but they bolded the questions, which I appreciated. They were like, there are questions in there, you'll find them. So I too tend to shorten that. And I will shorten the answer of Warm Feelings as well by moving on to the next question. After, because I am the official narrator of Easy Allies, I'm going to take a sip of water. You never want to run your business entirely based on what the community is screaming about. Quote from Rick Hogue. He says that's good advice. Stephen Beaumont, my main takeaway with keeping patrons encouraged, especially as an extra for the $5 podcast tier, I love getting the podcast early, would be a quarterly Love and Respect Cup podcast, either as an extra episode or a slow news week. I've gradually become more and more dissuaded from entering Love and Respect submissions. This is very timely, referencing the question we were just talking about. Due to the highly unlikely nature of submissions getting in. I feel that with a quarterly Love and Respect episode of the podcast, it wouldn't destabilize the other content, but be a boon for those patrons who have recently upped their pledge. If that isn't possible, maybe Kyle could prioritize newer patrons for Love and Respect to make them feel welcomed. I definitely think Cup of Jones would be highlighted on the should be highlighted on the podcast, and even on streams, as a much easier way to become a part of the conversation for just $1 and voice your opinions. Yes, I actually threw this at Kyle last night because I couldn't remember. I physically threw it. I watered it up into a ball, and I chucked it at his face. Because I remember this coming up in the past, and I remember him kind of sighing and being like, yeah, there's a reason I don't do that. And I asked him last night, and he said basically time. He's like, yeah, he's like, I spend a lot of time. One thing that you never get to see, I'd love to take a picture of, is when we shoot stuff on Tuesdays, if Kyle is in like Tabletop or Frame Trap, or Kyle comes by, sometimes he just comes by early. Kyle's coming by very early today. He actually, it's 10:28, he should be here at any moment. At any moment, I will see Kyle walking in the back of the garage and sitting down in a chair and cracking open his laptop. But Kyle spends a lot of time going through news headlines and going through stuff for the Easy Allies podcast, and so that's his Tuesday. Basically spends all day Tuesday doing that, and then now his schedule is pretty much finishing that, getting up first thing Wednesday, and jumping right into Box Peak. And so time is something that has prevented him from doing that in the past. But there's no question that doing more Love and Respect focused stuff, we do Love and Respect focused episodes, so it's not something that we would be that would feel unusual, because whenever Kyle's not going to be around, we don't do a headline-focused episode of the podcast. We shoot 2 of them back-to-back, and we do a bonus episode where you get just Love and Respect questions. So it is something we've done in the past. It is something that makes sense to do in the future. It is just something that Kyle, being the host, does not have time to organize and figure out when the shoot is and stuff like that. So that's the main takeaway there. But I definitely like mentioning Cup of Jones, and I think it's good for. It's funny to be like the hand-me-downs from the Easy Allies podcast. I couldn't get an Easy Allies podcast. Well, I guess I'll just center on Cup of Jones then. Jesse Abraham, part of me thinks the reason EZA is not growing is because when people show up and see you are making around 45K, they think, okay, these guys are good, no need to give them more money, which is sort of true, but at the same time, they underestimate the amount of work you put in and the amount of allies. For me, I think I would watch more content you guys make than actual TV shows, so it's easily justified for me anyway. We have another comment I'm going to read the next one, because Jeffrey White basically says the same thing. Jeffrey White, would you consider hiding the money that you make from Patreon, which is something you can do and something a lot of people do, as shown on the EZA Patreon overview, then report the Patreon money amount at payout to the patrons in a monthly Patreon post? I'm worried that publicly seeing the Patreon money all the time can affect who will choose to donate to Patreon, as I don't want people to see you making 45K and think, oh, they're fine, I don't need to give them any money. I think this would increase the money you're earning on Patreon over time. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because a lot of people, you know, say what was the EZA is not growing. People say we're stagnating. I am personally ecstatic that we are surviving, that we are still around, given that every day we are grateful to have this job, because at one point we didn't have this job, and so we're very happy to be doing the stuff that we love. But at the same time, yeah, it brings up a very good point. We are, I wouldn't say breaking records on Patreon, but we are a very impressive Patreon. We do make lots of money, but that money does go to support 9 grown adults that need to have a house, that need to have food, that need to have a car and gas in it to do what we do. And so we are not swimming through, you know, Scrooge's money bin. We are definitely going month to month as far as supporting ourselves and supporting the Patreon. But I think the thing, and maybe this is, maybe if, you know, all of the steps that we are taking, and something that I didn't mention at the top, but there will also be other steps that we are making in the future, other videos that we will be producing that you will be seeing in the coming months leading up to E3 that will also be in the aim of clarifying where we're going in the future of EZ Allies, clarifying what you can do to help out, calls to action, as you know, like Thursday, to our Twitch community, that you will also see socially, that you will see, you know, pledges to our requests to our YouTube community, as I have mentioned several times in the past, a clearer understanding of what the studio would mean for us, and possibly what changes you could expect from EZ Allies should we hit that goal. That 50K goal is so important, and it's so pivotal, I think, to EZ Allies, that I think that might be one of the reasons. Transparency is one of them as well. You know, we're a big fan of transparency. It's a new suit that we put on when we switched over to EZ Allies in a lot of ways, because so much of what we did at Game Trailers was done specifically for people that you never got to see or hear from, and so, because the people that are financially supporting us are the same people that are watching us now, we feel we want to be as transparent as possible. We get lots of comments that say we are not transparent enough. We will get a comment later on in this Cup of Jones that needs just a little bit more transparency. So it is a spectrum, and the showing how much money we make per month is part of that. And I think one of the things too is that I just like seeing, I like everybody seeing that, what it takes to get to that 50K. You know, a lot of people have opinions, a lot of people have, you know, their own takes on what we should be doing to get to that goal, and what we are doing right and what we are doing wrong, that is either getting us there or not. And so I think if you were just to see that patron number go up, I don't think we would get potentially the I want to say support, but I think it's more than that. Like, the people, I think there are people in our community that really lose sleep like we do, that really think long and hard about what can they do to actually make that happen. And I think if we were to hit that 50K goal, that would be absolutely extraordinary. It's something that we want, obviously. It's something that I think would be important to EZ Allies, but it would also be mind-blowing. I think it would be an incredible achievement if we actually pulled that off. And so it's going to be tough. It's going to be a climb. It's going to take work from you. It's going to take work from me. But we're all going to hold hands and hopefully get there together. But I think it's that, us being all a part of that climb. And like you said, you know, you can maybe do a post updating people, but at the same time, there are a lot of people that, you know, I was going to say subscribe, but pledge to us on Patreon and don't necessarily hang around Patreon, and they might miss that information. And so that is something that we can do. That is something that might have a positive impact. And following these months, this month of kind of a Patreon restructuring, the next month of a ramp up to E3 itself, if we get into midsummer and we are still hovering around the 40K level, or perhaps dropping below it, then it might be time to do that. That might be a smart thing to do. Several Patreons that I see, it is a rare thing among the Patreons that I associate EZ Allies with, to actually include the monetary amount of where we're at. But we enjoy it for now. Jesse P., I'm afraid my question regarding long-form content last week was a little too vague. I was more specifically wondering about stuff like full playthroughs, frame traps that are 3 hours long. Are there frame traps that aren't 3 hours long? The mega streams, such as the SNES special, and longer streams in general. Will we be seeing these in the future? Yeah. You're going to get a mega stream Thursday, so there you go. Frame Trap, the purpose of Frame Trap is to be much longer than the Easy Allies podcast. That is, Frame Trap is unhinged. In a good way. It's supposed to be something where you don't want to, obviously you want to moderate speech, but when it is recorded for enjoyment by the masses, but those conversations are supposed to be lengthy. And full playthroughs, I mean, as long as Michael Huber is an Easy Ally, you can pretty much guarantee those. So yeah, we will continue to do those. Do not fret. I do not recall those being on the chopping block. No, it would be, if I was going to say chalking, then it would be the chalking blop. What I was about to say, but my brain saw blop coming. It was like, whoa! Blop's not a word. Stellar more, since review scores, I'm sorry, I was actually referencing something that, yeah, I don't remember those coming up as something that we didn't want to do anymore, or somebody raising their hand and being like, Huber, enough. Enough. Stellar more, since review scores are an individual metric and Easy A GOTY is decided by the group, what are your thoughts on the unlikely, but very possible scenario of a badly scored game being GOTY? I've thought about this a lot, and I got an answer ready. I'm excited about this. For example, imagine if Huber had been the one to review The Last Guardian, and he gave it 2.5 or 3 stars. Would that big of a disparity spur you to add a disclaimer to the GOTY video? A disclaimer would be hilarious. Huber doesn't like this game, but, here's your GOTY. What are your thoughts in general on the duality of review scores being representative of a single person's opinion, but also Easy A as an organization? Here's my answer. Yeah, I think that's something that just is inherently going to happen. There are some people that are similar to us that are run by one person primarily. So when you get a review from them, you are getting a review just from this one person. They might collaborate with other people. They might, if it's a multiplayer game, they might bring in some of their friends to help with gameplay or to offer their opinions, and then that might influence them in their score. But at the end of the day, it's still that one person's score. Most of the time, 99.999% of the time, if you see a review from Easy Allies, it will have one name attached to it. And that is a nice way to do it. It's nice to have one person's perspective. It's nice to see somebody that loves the series as much as Huber loves God of War, be excited for God of War, review God of War, and then praise God of War as much as he did, for very valid reasons we will get into in the editorial, as from my opinion. But at the same time, it is also just out of necessity. Like, if all of us all reviewed all games, if you got 9 reviews from every video game, 9 separate videos, 9 separate scripts, 9 separate scores, and then we like averaged them or something, that would be an interesting social experiment, but at the same time it would obviously limit us in the types of games that we could cover. Like, we would only be able to do like 2 reviews a month, because it's nice to spread out the work, spread out the love with everybody, and assign people to stuff that they know and like, are going to be excited to work on. So one person being involved in a review is just kind of the nature of the business, the nature of our business, it's how we do things. But then, yeah, GOTY comes up at the end of the year, and I mean, even The Legend of Zelda was our game of the year, and The Legend of Zelda got, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild got 4.5 stars or potentially 4 stars. I don't remember back at the time. I cannot recall. I believe it was 4.5 stars. So that did not get 5 stars, and I believe there was something we gave 5 stars to that year. And so you're like, wait a minute. Well, that one person reviewed. So there's a disparity, I guess. That potentially doesn't make sense on paper, that you're like, shouldn't just automatically the game that gets that, but that's the magic of GOTYs. The GOTYs is that collaborative decision, is that group vote. And so when you're tuning in for GOTYs, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, you're not tuning in for the de facto best game of the year. Like, you're not going into saying like, finally, Easy Allies is getting to the truth of video game life. This is the answer we've all been waiting for. There it is, the game that was better than any other game. All games step aside, here comes this game. It says, okay, it's late December, early January, where are our heads at? That's GOTY, is kind of like, what does this year mean to us, looking back at everything? And so I encourage all sorts of curveballs when that process begins. Whether it is somebody who reviewed a game very highly getting voted out and another game getting recognition, somebody that didn't like a game getting voted out and the game they didn't like becoming the Easy Allies Game of the Year, or even possibly somebody so many months later accepting the fact that, you know, I reviewed that game in March, and looking back on that game now, I still hold to my review score, but looking at the spectrum of games, the spectrum of interactivity that was, you know, in this case, 2018, and for that reason, I'm out on that game really being the game of the year. I think there's a lot of factors to consider, which is why I don't think there are a lot of low blows that people can swing in GOTY meetings. There's a lot of like, oh yeah, well you said this about this game, and oh yeah, you have this opinion about this. And I don't think I've ever seen, oh yeah, well you scored that game that. Like, that's a pretty low blow, and I don't think I've ever seen that come up as far as like somebody questioning, you know, what someone's motives or interests are or opinions when the GOTY process begins. So I like it. So I like it when review scores come in. I like it when we pick GOTYs. I like both of those processes because I think one is a individual experience, at least in the gathering of information. Obviously, you know, one of us, I do the voiceover, Bloodworth edits the scripts, and either myself or Ian or Don cuts the video. But when you get that collaborative GOTY group discussion, I think it's a completely different thing. Loved seeing Easy Allies on the Yakuza 6 reviews list and God of War from Swordfish. Thank you. Yeah, that was, dug that. Felt really, really good to hit that embargo for God of War and for Yakuza. That's not a helicopter. What is that? Is that a motorcycle? Whatever it is, it's gone. Come on, Jones. Easy Allies just suggested God of War for every human on Earth. If that's not an endorsement for the answer to all things, what is? I mean, that's also Huber, so there you go. So that's the thing, is like, that's a very Huber way of explaining that, whereas when you get ready for GOTYs, you know, another person will very much likely step in and write that script so we can get another perspective. No, that is a chainsaw, I think. I think there's some home building going on. I don't know if you can hear that low rumble. That is an intense rumble. All right, we're charging through. Brandon K. Gann. All the talk of modifying tiers and rewards makes me think about the intro video posted on Easy Ace Patreon discussing all of the content the Allies produce. I understand the loss of funding isn't in the mind's forefront when producing such a video, but if when Easy A makes another video in the same style, do you think adding a disclaimer at the end saying how shows are individually backed at specific tiers? Currently it promotes friend code and reaction shots, currently unavailable for at least and hopefully only a month, Easy Anime, something that has now been retired, your star rating system, also defunct, etc. I really like that video, and it's a little weird how you produced a concise and comprehensive introduction to Easy Allies, yet, through circumstances unforeseen, there are aspects of it already outdated. It's not a little weird. That's promos, baby. That video that you're talking about replaced a video that was also old and outdated, and so it doesn't take long for us to, which I think is a good thing. It shows how much the Patreon and Easy Allies itself is evolving. By highlighting the disclaimers in the welcoming post video on the website, etc., I feel it lets new potential patrons more fully aware of where Easy Allies stands in what is valued where. Yes. I don't think that warrants a giant discussion, Brandon. I think that's just a good suggestion. Yeah, just to kind of... Obviously, things are changing all the time at Easy Allies, so if you are interested in signing up for this, please check. Yeah, they should be like micro machines at the end of it. Like, please check all current Patreon tiers before pledging to Easy Allies in case any of that information has changed. Richard L. Gardner, what happened to the... let me do it when you go. Write that one down. Takeaway. I don't think I did. Hello. Is everything out of order? Nope. Promo disclaimers. Nice. Richard L. Gardner. What happened to the Easy A review for Kingdom Come Deliverance? In the February Frame Trap episode, Huber said he was reviewing the game and gave his initial impressions about it, but we haven't seen or heard anything about it since. Has the review been canceled or something? Keep up the good work. I love that. Obviously, I think keep up the good work was meant positively, but it is kind of funny. Has it been canceled or something? Keep up the good work. I don't think it's supposed to be read like that. Bloodworth answered this for me, so I just want to get Blood's response because I think you all deserve an update on that. Yeah, this Kingdom Come review got interrupted when we got Yakuza early, and then Huber had a way out and God of War come in as well. He's moving on to other projects. So, yeah, we will not be officially reviewing Kingdom Come Deliverance, but it's a heck of a game. Andrew Reif, which I'm apparently pronouncing correctly. I thought it might be Reef because he asked me to pronounce that. I guess I asked, but apparently I'm getting it right. Andrew Reif. He said Reif with Reif. It's like rifle without the L. So that's Reif. I want to talk about some of the growing concern about the quote-unquote stagnant talk of Easy A. I have to say that some of this talk has got me slightly miffed! Exclamation point. Only slightly, because put an exclamation point. He is very slightly miffed. On the spectrum of slight miffiness. It's extremely slight. Only slightly because I'm sure that these people are trying to help Easy A succeed. However, I think some perspective on how small businesses perform needs to be known. Here we go, Hogue. You ready for this? According to the Small Business Administration, a U.S. government agency assisting small businesses, close to 66% of small businesses, 2/3, fail within their first 2 years, and most do not start making a profit until their 3rd year. Fun fact, Game Trailers only made a profit 1 year of its operation. The entire time it was owned by Viacom, the entire time it was owned by Defy Media. We only brought in a profit at GameTrailers.com once. Just put things in perspective. As far as kind of what the advertising, consumer-based entertainment industry that we're in, that when you have people like us, even just within big companies like that, and now that we are independent, just kind of. That was eye-opening to me when I learned that this year. I remember being in the office of Mr. Brad Winters, who ran the business side, who even if you were way deep in Game Trailers back in the day, you probably never saw because he just handled the business side. Very good guy. Miss you, Brad. Miss hanging out with Brad Winters. I remember Brad Winters was just like, oh, hey, by the way, we made money. And I was like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah. He's like, Game Trailers this year, we just wrapped up our financial year and we're on top. And I was like, there we go. And it was like at our peak. I think it was like 2010 or something like that. But just puts it in perspective, that investment as a business that you have to do. You look at Netflix and like how much stuff they're just pumping out. And a lot of that is, they're like, let's take a hit to make the play. Let's dip a little bit into our coffers to encourage people to subscribe. And then even if they don't get as much crazy original content as they're getting right now, in the future, they've signed up. They know what they signed up for. Yes, Easy A needs to continue to grow, but so does literally every other business. While Easy A has not reached the level of success that many allies, including myself, thinks it can achieve, thank you, Andrew, Easy A is already a success in many ways and should be celebrated as such. I'm not going to go on about that. I just wanted to include that comment because I thought that was... I appreciate that from Andrew, and I wanted to share that about Game Trailers. Anthony Sabelli. I frequently look at the statistics for the Easy A Patreon and social platforms on Graphtreon. I don't visit Graphtreon that much anymore, but boy was I obsessed with that when Easy Allies first started. And I recently noticed something interesting. Since April, the number of Facebook likes has dropped, and looking back through past months, that number has either risen or fluctuated a little. Twitter and YouTube subscribers seem to be unaffected in comparison. Do you think this drop is due to people deleting their accounts in response to the recent Facebook privacy scandal? Maybe. That's fascinating. Yeah, I wonder. I mean, when an entire platform gets, like, under heavy scrutiny like that, what can you do? It's a small drop. I mean, we saw that with Patreon, where Patreon had a very unsuccessful month across the board when it announced that they were going to be making changes that pretty much everyone did not like, from patrons to content creators. It's a small drop, negative 20 likes, but do you think it's because of this reason, something else, or just coincidence? I think that I don't think it's all for that reason, but I think that definitely affected it. But that's interesting. Also, what are your thoughts about the whole Facebook privacy issue? I'm not reading up on it that much. I think that I think accountability is something that a lot of these big companies don't have. So I do appreciate that. I do appreciate. I love a good hearing. Because it's regardless of what my political affiliations are, regardless what side I have on the hearing, like, I just love I love the end of Quiz Show. I don't know if you've ever seen Quiz Show, but there's this great hearing at the end of Quiz Show where they finally just grill Voldemort, what's his name? Ralph Fiennes, when they finally just glue him to a chair, and they're like, hey, you lied, and we're not cool with that. So yeah, I love accountability. I love transparency. I love when we finally. I love when the buck stops here. I love when we finally are like, okay, one person needs to represent. And so it's fascinating to me seeing the crazy career that Zuckerberg has had, and seeing him in that position, and seeing him answer those questions. There's an amazing GIF of him laughing at something that he said, and the laugh goes away in milliseconds. He's like, huh. Okay, it's like I probably shouldn't laugh, but I mean, if you're sitting in that chair for so long, I imagine you just get nutty. But, yeah, I tend to lean a little more on the side of I'm not that concerned about privacy issues. Not that I'm just like, take my information, please, but it does not, I don't break out into sweats when I think about it. That's just me. That's just kind of how my brain is wired. But I think that's a whole different issue. Maybe we can get into that in a tutorial someday. Ryan Burleson. Shortly after E3 last year, you mentioned you were going to be featured as a guest on a certain other gaming publication's couch. Hint, their name can be equated to a very large explosive device. Excuse me, before I move on, I did? Speaking of the greatest of bombs, the Giant Bomb, I love Giant Bomb. I was starstruck when I finally got to meet Dan Reichert for the first time when I went up to San Francisco and visited their offices. Gersman's one of my favorite people in this industry, period. Gersman is a treasure. Gersman is a very, very smart person. I really, really love Jeff. No, that I was not never going to be on Giant Bomb. Maybe I was going to try, but that is a very exclusive community as far as the guests that they have on. I don't know if I've ever reached out to them specifically. I would kind of feel gross doing that. I would want that kind of a collaboration to be something very organic. A lot of times stuff like that tends to be kind of like a grassroots campaign coming up from the community. Yeah, Giant Bomb is aces. They are really, really great at what they do. They're so much fun. And but yeah, I'm gonna really be careful with stuff that I say about this E3, because if I suggested that, and that's the reaction that you took from that, I would love to know where I did that, especially if it was recorded, because that language was off if I suggested that, because I can't even recall ever potentially setting up plans with them. I'd love that though, because that's a comfy looking couch. Upon hearing this, I became very excited as I enjoy following their content almost as much as EZA. Alas, E3 came and went, and among their numerous guests, your familiar face and voice never showed up. E3 being as chaotic as it is, I can surmise a number of reasons why this didn't come to fruition. The reason is me being dumb, apparently. Do you think you might try to be their guest again this year? I'd sure enjoy it if you could. I also would enjoy it. And heck, I'll try. But new faces is just not a thing you see that often with Giant Bomb. You kind of come to expect, it's like, all these people again. And I think you expect that and look forward to it when they do E3 coverage. So I don't know how well received I or any of the allies would be by the Giant Bomb community when it comes to primetime. You know, if there was just like, you know, the random show they put together and like, oh, look, Easy Allies. But if it's E3 and one of us just crashes the party, they're like, couldn't, you know, John Vignacchi should be in that chair. Karsten Kohler, I'm a big fan of the Easy Allies betting specials, but I miss the old feuds between Bossman and Huber, and kind of feel the rivalry never came to a proper closure. It never will. That's me. I know the championship match is already set, but without neither Bossman and Huber competing, without Bossman or Huber competing. However, as I see the E3 betting special as something like the WrestleMania of betting specials, I was wondering if there's some chance to see Bossman and Huber anyway competing outside of the main event. That is up to Bossman and Huber. It could be a special match, like, for example, a No Dawn's Barred, where all bets are submitted by Dawn, or a Money in the Bank match, with the winner earning the right to challenge the current champion whenever he wants. I think having more than one match would bring the world of betting entertainment to a new level. Intense. Yeah, I wouldn't expect that during E3 because we got to make the bets we have be as good as they can be. If you missed it, and I mentioned it before in a Cup of Jones, we have a recent post that we put up on Patreon where we said, hey, come at us, bro. What do you think about improvements you would like to see to Easy Allies, whether that is stuff that we stream, shows that we produce, events that we cover. And we want to see Bossman and Huber bet against each other was a big one. It's not something that we can change right now for E3 because we want to see the culmination, the Infinity War, if you will, of the Ultima Brad saga and all of the stuff building up to the battle between Rainy Day Ian and Ultima Brad. I would like to see that. I think we can put on a good show, wrapping all of that up. Just as as is the case, as the seasons pass, as we go through the year, you know, when you know, winter's over, you're like, oh, I'm gonna miss winter, but yay, spring, and so it's like, I think spring coming will be the next season of the betting special, and I think you can expect to see Bossman and Huber playing a much larger role in those bets. But I think it was nice for them, especially following game trailers and then moving into Easy Allies and seeing all of these individual opportunities here at Easy Allies to do things differently than we did at game trailers. I think we were trying that suit on and seeing how this felt. You know, we're having other members of the Easy Allies crew picking up the slack when it comes to the betting specials and being more of the focus. And so at this point, if we had stuck with Bossman v. Huber for just pretty much the way bets always work, that could have potentially stagnated. That could have gotten boring potentially. So there's no way to say for sure, but I think it might be time to get back to that. But again, it's you know, it's up to Huber and Bossman. Kenny Montenegro, I recently watched a video from another video game reviewer. You did what? And I noticed they have a sponsor button next to the usual subscribe button on YouTube. I clicked on it, and it gave me the option to pay $5 a month to support them. They offered little things like a badge for live chat and some exclusive content, quote-unquote, question mark. I don't know how that works on YouTube. I was wondering if it would be good for Easy A to have something like that as well, just like on Twitch. Yes. Monetizing our YouTube audiences, well, technically we have 2 channels. Monetizing our YouTube audiences is something that we are going to be placing much more attention onto, kind of introducing our YouTube audience, or the members of our YouTube audience that are not aware we have a Patreon, that are not aware we stream on Twitch, that we do those things, and that there is other ways to support us financially every month, or just right now if you feel the interest to do that. Having an ad, even though the comments are extremely divisive, having an ad, a promo for our stream this Thursday is one step in that direction. It's not something we typically do. We kind of just announce it here on Patreon, and then of course spread the word on Twitch, but don't necessarily light the banners of or the braziers, light the towers. What are they called? What is it in Lord of the Rings? We're like dun dun dun, and then you're like all the, you know what I'm talking? That scene where they light one, and the guy in the distance sees one, and then he lights his, and then somebody else lights his. I'm tired. I don't know. Lewis Sandiford, Fancy 15 keeps winning stream votes. Group stream votes. This is another reminder to make it its own show. Yeah. Let's see if anybody says that. That was a fantastic promo. I will pass that information on to Ian. Brazier, I think they're pronounced. The Beacons. They're the Beacons. That's the word I'm looking for. The Beacons. Lighten the Beacons on YouTube. Yeah, here's the thing with Fancy 15, because Fancy 15 came up in conversation, and this is not the last time, obviously, you're going to hear about Fancy 15. But there is a difference between a Fancy 15 stream and a Fancy 15 show. So you're saying Fancy 15 keeps winning group stream votes. Stream. This is another reminder to make it its own show. Fancy 15 as a stream and Fancy 15 as a show are 2 different things. Just keep that in mind. Not to be mysterious about it, but yeah, there you go. I'll leave it at that. Dakota Hayes, what if on top of your betting special, you also have a betting special with another video game community, Game Attack, Kinda Funny, etc.? It could be a good way for viewers of one community to get to know another they may have not known about. You could do promos leading up to the event, similar to how wrestling does theirs. Obviously, that's an amazing idea. Obviously, it would behoove us to challenge other channels in online games, in bets, in absolutely every way that you can imagine. Doing it around an event sounds terrifying, because we always run out of time when we want to produce stuff for events. There's always that ticking clock leading up to something because they set hard dates. Ubisoft, just moments before I started Cup of Jones, announced when their press conference was going to be, and so they're slowly rolling out these details. We're adapting our schedule to what we're going to do leading up, and it's always that, not that we don't enjoy doing betting specials. We love doing betting specials, but there always is that bit of fatigue right before an event where we're like, oh yeah, betting, when are we going to shoot that? Let's shoot that this time. And inevitably one person's like, Thursday, that's when we're shooting that? And it's like, look at the calendar. That's when we have to shoot that. And so I would be nervous about placing bets or setting something up with another channel and then kind of leaning on them to you know, do their share of the work leading up to an event, knowing that they're also freaking out about that event like we are. And so some kind of a collaboration with another channel, when you see those happen, they tend to happen at the times of year when nothing's really going on, where it's like, oh look, we got time, let's all get together. Or if it's as simple as, you know, people are in San Francisco for GDC, and so they're going to go over to the Kind of Funny offices and appear with them because, hey, I'm in town, let's hang out. But let's do something specifically for this event. But creating special content around an event and then bringing another entity into it that could potentially, this is not a stab at anybody, but could potentially drag their feet or not get back to us, or not be communicative when we need that communication. Sounds absolutely terrifying. But we were just talking about potentially evolving bets, getting them back to what makes bets great, making bets great again, and that might be a way to do it. Mr. M, what happened to posting the list of questions you're answering in the YouTube descriptions? Post them in the comments if you can't edit it after the live stream or something. So this is on Cup of Jones specifically, and I might have to go back on this. Did I promise that? I say a lot of stuff here on Cup of Jones. I try to write down most of it, and I don't know if I made a promise that I was going to do that. And the reason I say that, basically saying if you tune in to Patreon or you watch Cup of Jones on YouTube after the fact, that there would be a list of every single question I'm going to answer in the order I'm going to do that. That is a little bit of work, I got to admit. I'm already swapping the order of things around. Keep in mind, we're just going through business questions. The silly personal questions are coming up after this. I don't know, Mr. M, that sounds like a lot of work. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I said that was going to happen, if I made that pronouncement. Yeah, that seems like a really huge Patreon post. I mean, I get like 40 questions a week, and so it's like, and some of these questions are tricky because it's you can't really, in order to condense someone's question into something that would just take up one line of text if you were going to have a list, I'd have to like rewrite what they were saying, and so it is a little bit of work. I think that's a little bit too much work for right now, I gotta be honest. If I had a little less responsibilities, and Cup of Jones was kind of more of a bigger thing for me than not something, I mean, it's like, look at that question right there. You know, it's like, how do you make that question a sentence? It's a little intense. But I will take that away. I will take that to advisement, and apologies if I promised to do that in the past. I tend to avoid using the P word. Kyle Lee made a long comment that Bloodworth answered, and so it's all in there, but I want to read it all and give Bloodworth's response, because it addresses a concern that Kyle had and also gives you a little look into the life of the workload of Daniel Bloodworth. Kyle Lee. Yesterday I was talking to a friend that I've been trying to get into Easy Allies for a while now. Thank you for that, Kyle. The slow pressuring. And she gave me some interesting feedback from the perspective of someone on the outside wanting to start watching that I felt was worth sharing with you. The first thing she talked about was how cumbersome it can be to try to find things on the YouTube page, which makes it pretty overwhelming when you're not sure where to start. We discussed that it would be helpful to break down videos into more distinct collections, i.e. solo streams by certain people, similar game styles, etc., as well as making it a bit easier to watch something that has a lot of different games in a series, like separating the games from Fun Game Monday and Dumb Game Monday into their own playlists, instead of having one all-encompassing one with over 70 streams. She also brought up how much she wants to see clips and best-ofs, which I was able to let her know you're already starting up on. Overall, I think a reorganizing of the YouTube channel to make it a bit more friendly to outsiders and longtime fans alike would be hugely helpful to bring more people in. And this is the response from Daniel Bloodworth. I do my best to keep the channels organized. I don't know that there's much more I could do with the main channel, but it sounds like your feedback mostly concerns Easy Allies plays. Essentially, most of the playlists are for each individual game an ally is playing through, from the start of the game through to the end, or however many streams they do if it's not a full playthrough. Then there are special series like group streams, weekly hunts, Blood Pact, and Dumb Game Monday. We considered separating Dumb Game Monday and Fun Game Monday into different playlists, but Kyle and I thought it made more sense to keep them together, since when they alternate, he'll usually start by referencing what happened in the week before. On the higher level, on the homepage of the channel, we have those playlists separated into two different buckets, the special series at the top and all the playthroughs below. Aside from that, I'm not sure what else people would want to see in terms terms of organization. I feel like trying to create an RPG playlist, for example, could be a bit messy, as you'd have stuff like Suikoden, Final Fantasy VII, and Earthbound all kind of intertwined together, and it would be massive. Perhaps it would be good to make separate playlists for each individual ally, as I do on Twitch. That could take a lot of time, but let me know what you think, if you think that would be helpful, and if there's anything else in particular you'd like to see. So yeah, a reorganization, a restructuring of the YouTube page. All of that is handled by Bloodworth and managed very well. But if you have any specific takes or suggestions, then you can send them to Daniel Bloodworth, or you can we can address them here on Cup of Jones, because Bloodworth is known to watch the show. When you see Easy Allies chime in on the YouTube comments, it could be Daniel Bloodworth. Denise Schreiber. So I just stumbled upon a best of mandatory update video, which is great. I don't have the link, unfortunately, but you should check it out. I wonder if you could just search that and find it. And the tonal difference between that and EZA content was really curious to me. You talked about swearing before, but I wonder if the generally more family-friendly tone of EZA compared to GT is something that you guys decided on purposefully. Also, I used to listen to Invisible Walls a lot back in the day, and it's really interesting to me how bro-y the vibes felt compared to late GT and EZA. Was that something you were conscious of back in the day? Was that tonal change something you steered towards, I'm guessing? That is not the word that was chosen, but I'm assuming that's what that is. On purpose, or something that just happened because of the people involved, or maybe even just a sign of the times in gaming culture, possibly growing up a little in the last decade. Did it? Maybe it did. I don't know. Yeah, it just, you nailed it. It is something that just happened because of the people involved. When we finished up, Game Trailers, when Game Trailers was no more, and people were reaching out and saying, this sucks that Game Trailers isn't around. I miss Game Trailers. I want Game Trailers to be back. I love Game Trailers for these reasons. I remarked how many people mentioned that I think you guys are a positive voice in this industry. I think you guys are, it's obviously not all sunshine and rainbows. It is in many ways an uneasy alliance as well, but that was something that they liked about us, and what made me really proud of what we had created at Game Trailers by the time that Game Trailers was not around anymore, was the fact that that wasn't something that was written on the walls. That was not a mandate. That was not something that I was cracking the whip and telling everybody to put a smile on their face. That was just something that happened because of the people involved. And so in creating Easy Allies and creating something from the ground up that was us, that was not us working for a company and trying to define what that was, because that was always tricky, because Easy Allies, I mean, the ally is a noun, just like Game Trailer, but the Game Trailers was a word, and it originally was created just to aggregate media and provide it for the peoples. And so creating our own content, it was always a struggle to be like, who are we? What is that vibe? And so Invisible Walls was its own show. GT Time was its own show, and the Easy Allies podcast is its own show. And so I think more than anything, it is decided by the people that are involved. Because we do lots of talking, and you'd have to put on, it'd be very difficult to put on a character that entire time for all that amount of talking. All right. Julian, do you feel that having your sponsors pledge through Patreon is potentially an unethical oversight? The people who suffer the most from the dips in your Patreon pledges are your fans. I beg to differ. The people who suffer most from a Patreon dip are us. It's like if you don't get a video to watch, then, that's unfortunate, but if less money goes into the Patreon, less money goes into our pockets, and that sucks for us. So, sorry, not to put ourselves in front of you. I really want to try to not do that as many times as possible, but I must interject, sir. Why should your fans suffer from a lack of sponsorship? You can ski on the big... Oh, and also, I love this. You can ski on the big island of Hawaii on the tip of Mauna Kea. It is the tallest mountain on Earth, and you can see the curvature of the world on the horizon as you ski down its slopes. We talked about SSX, I believe, last week, and I mentioned that one of my favorite levels is in Hawaii, because you can't ski in Hawaii, but apparently you can. Yeah, let's unpack this. The people who suffer the most from the dips in your Patreon pledges are your fans. Why should your fans suffer from a lack of sponsorship? So, I mean, it's weird because you're all sponsors. You know what I mean? Like when we have when we set up the $500 tier and the $250 tier, because I think this also might be in response to a comment that I made where I said, if you see us fluctuating by a couple $1,000s on Patreon, most of the time that's because several sponsors dropped out. And it happens. You know, we have a lot of sponsors that are just people helping us out. We have a lot of sponsors like Sweet Justice that are really great audio design companies, but are not massive. And so $500 is a considerable chunk of their budget month to month. Unless you're rolling deep like Keyless and you just, hey, you know, another $500, where do I sign? You're all sponsors. When we address the $500 tier, those are called podcast sponsors. When we have the Frame Trap tier, those are Frame Trap sponsors. At the $1 tier, you are an Easy Allies sponsor. You are a patron sponsor of Easy Allies. If 500 of you at the $1 level decide to leave, then that is being potentially an unethical oversight to everyone else. You know, I don't think size of a pledge or size of any one specific tier is unethical. If it is, then just this Patreon in general. If it is, then assigning things to specific goals, in my opinion, I'm curious to hear everybody's input on this, is potentially unethical. Rick Hogue has got to be weighing in on this. Brandon, I don't think there's any good way to answer this logic, honestly. But Julian, I say it because I don't believe I've ever seen the name Julian pop up in Cup of Jones, and so I thank you for sponsoring us here on Patreon.com/EasyAllies. I thank you very much for jumping in with a question here. Yeah, there are patrons big and small, and some will leave, and there's nothing we can do about it. Vu, VU. I'm gonna go with Vu. It's a fascinating name though. I would love it if this person's name was just Vu. The upcoming fundraising, as well as last year's fiscal year's reports, which are being published by Japanese companies. Let me think about this sensitive subject more than I should, though. As an investor, quote unquote, I would love to have some kind of, quote unquote, annual report to see how the money was used and whether or not it was used for the interest of the patrons. A certain level of financial transparency could justify your call for capital injection as well. Capital injection. We talked about potentially calling the drive this Thursday our fiduciary duties drive. Hogue will hopefully enjoy that. Capital injection, though, is good too. I'm gonna have to remember that one on Thursday. Time for some capital injections. I'm gonna pull a Bossman card with this one. In that would be a lot of work, and I think it's too late right now because I would be tough for me to go back and go through. January, February, and March if we were to do an end of 2018 and actually like add up all the money. We do that. Like we do have budgeting software that we use. You know, we do right now financially. Easy Allies is managed by myself and Amanda. Amanda handles things like payroll, and Amanda handles. Amanda just has a better financial mind, which is hilarious because my dad was an accountant, and so you'd think some of that would have rubbed off on me, but none of it did. And so we are kind of doing that because we believe in Easy Allies, because all of us need to share the load in order to make this thing, to help this boat leave the harbor. But we are making steps right now to change the business outline of Easy Allies, change those responsibilities, and one goal that we have for the future that is not a part of Patreon, that we do not need a drive for, is to bring in another person to once a month manage the finances of Easy Allies, to come in, pay everybody, and manage all that stuff. We do have somebody lined up to do it. We just have to finish up some business processes before we are at a point where we can bring that person in. But once we do, maybe 2018 is not the year that will happen, but maybe starting in 2019, that person can then start creating like a PDF or a document at the end of every month that outlines what money went where. But even the financial transparency there, Vu, there's never going to be a one-to-one. You're never going to see exactly what money was spent on everything. Because some of that involves salary. I think that should be private. I mean, you can just kind of loosely run the numbers if you want. Just take whatever we make a month, divide it by 9. You know, take a couple grand out for expenses. There you go. But at the same time, I think I'll put it this way. This Thursday, we're going to be listing specifically what equipment that we're going to be getting. Ian has been exhaustingly looking at all sorts of different viable options for new equipment that we could get to improve the look and the sound of Easy Allies. And so we finally arrived on something, and it sucks because every time we're excited about something, 2 months go by and then something else gets announced, or something else is, hey, we're this camera company's gonna be making this camera and it's gonna come out, I don't know, this year maybe. So we're like, should we plan on getting that? We have no idea when that's coming out. And so on Thursday, we're going to be putting up an image that will show all of the equipment that we want to get, and inevitably, wait for it, we're going to be getting in comments that are like, nah, that camera sucks, you don't want that camera. And so I think if we were to ever do a one-to-one financial report, people would be like, what, you spent money on that? You shouldn't spend money on that. And like, we want feedback from Patreon. We want feedback from people that are giving us money. You deserve that. You deserve to be a part in how much, where your hard-earned money goes and where those resources go toward. Should not be shocking to you that the vast majority of monies that we get every month go to us, go to the allies, go to our salaries, go to help us live. There's not a huge surprise there. I just think the more you would really drill into those things, the more Cup of Jones questions would start to turn into, I noticed you spent $542 on that. I saw this other thing on Amazon, and I think you should have spent money. It was like, okay, all right, okay, we'll do that next time. So I just don't want to get into nitpicky stuff like that, because I think it would take away from the fun parts of the business, which I think a lot of you give us money to watch us have fun. Zoldark, I just wanted to bring it to your attention that Twitch currently offers 500 bits for $1 for Prime subscribers once per account. 500 bits should equal $5 in your bank. This strikes me as the perfect opportunity for your fundraising stream, so if the offer is still valid on Thursday, I hope you'll embrace the bits and incorporate them into your donation goals. I don't know if we'll incorporate them into our donation goals. We're also not going to incorporate our Patreon money into our donation goals. The donation goals are going to be that. They're going to be donations. Like, this is money that is not going to be added to our Patreon, that is not going to be incorporated in our Twitch or YouTube. This is money we are going to take and immediately put into buying equipment. That is, I mean, talk about, financial transparency. There it is. We're going to take that out of the bank and go straight to probably online, where we'll order that stuff, or some kind of equipment depot somewhere. If you haven't heard about that, this is amazing. Basically, you get $5 worth of a currency to spend on Twitch just for $1, which is great. Amazon has been doing really great things with that with Prime. That only benefit primarily benefit the people that are producing content on Twitch. So if you are encouraged to do that, I encourage you to do so. Thank you for bringing it up on Cup of Jones so I could bring it up here, because it is never a bad idea to let people know easy ways that they can help us financially. And finally, with one last business question. Very timely, because we're working on personal questions. Thank you, the Finnish ally, for suggesting, when reading the feedback, could it be possible to start with business-related questions and comments? For many of us, those are the most interesting topics, but now they are intertwined with everything else. Currently, it's impossible to get the business stuff without watching through the whole show, which can be very long. I know this we're still an hour and 17 in, so I know this requires extra work. It's not that bad. But you can ask for questions to start with what category it is to make it easier to sort later. Easy to sort, don't need to do that. Keep posting like you're posting, we will do it like this. So there you go. That is the business side. Maybe I'll come up with a different song at some point and we'll have a different jazz song for business, a different jazz song for personal. Maybe some kind of noirist thing, like, all right, time to talk about Batman for 45 minutes. But that is the business portion of Cup of Jones. Time to get into personal questions. Kicking it off, of course, with Batman. Brian Denu. Now that Bruce vs. Batman Season 2 is complete, we'll watch the archive as soon as I'm done with Season 2 myself! Exclamation point. Any thoughts on what you'll be streaming next on Thursday nights? At 10 p.m. this Thursday, I'll be going to bed after a 9-hour mega stream. But next Thursday, I will most likely be streaming something. I know that you usually have an idea for what's already on your mind, but as a huge fan of the series, I have to recommend a full playthrough of Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, and even Andromeda, if you can stomach it. Not only do they hold up tremendously well, but you can play them all on the Xbox One with backwards compatibility, keeping your Shepard's decisions with you into each subsequent game. I think that your full playthroughs are so much fun, and whatever comes next will be a blast, but I have to make the case for Mass Effect, simply because I know how much you'll enjoy it, and I know how much I will enjoy watching. Sure, how much time would that take? Let's take bets on how long, not hours, but weeks, it would take. Each one's like, what, 40 hours? So 20, that's 20 streams, 4 streams a month. So that's 5 months per game. That's a year and a half. At least, possibly 2 years of playing nothing but Mass Effect. I would love it. I've always been really, really tempted to go through and make horrible decisions and have people scream at me, being like, you let that person die, what are you doing? I will say this, though, Brian. One of the major sentiments that was a major conversation that we're not really going to get into yet. You won't be hearing updates about stuff like this on Thursday, but we do a lot of solo streams. We get lots of comments from people that say we want to see more than one person streaming on Twitch more often. It's tricky because sometimes an ally will say, hey, I'm streaming this, anybody can come over to my house, and we're all like, it's just, it's Wednesday, it's kind of my day off this week, but it is tempting to go. We've been experimenting with more things playing online, so you can see more people, you can get that interaction, but there's nothing like being on the couch, there's nothing like all of us being together. We have lots of interesting suggestions amongst the allies about how to do that, about how to shake up our Twitch schedule so that you can see us spread out more often. And so, for that reason, man, that phrase, I guess I didn't realize how much I say it, but it now will be forever tainted by a reality show I was not watching, thanks to Mr. Kyle Bossman, who's not in that chair. He said he was going to come by at 10:30. I wonder if he's on the table, and I can't see him. But, yeah. If I do, I will certainly think about Mass Effect. I gotta be honest, I get lots of comments from people who just say, just go to 2. Just go straight to 2 and just do 2. And I did play 1 for a little bit, but if you know me, you know that Mass Effect is one of those things in my backlog that I've always wanted to get to. But I would be more inspired to do more spouse quests. Amanda has suggested that she wants to be more involved with Easy Allies. I'm interested in doing more Spouse Quest episodes with her. Swords of Ditto just came out, and I think we'll probably be playing that next week. So don't quote me on that, no promises, but next Thursday at 10 p.m. Could possibly be Swords of Ditto with myself and Amanda Troop. Michael G. A genie offers you $1 million, but warns you that if you do take the money, an immortal, implacable pigeon will harass you for the remainder of your life. Would you take the cash? No. No. Not only because it sounds horrible being harassed by a pigeon, and not only because $1 million is gone like that, but, just anytime there's some kind of genie being like, but there's a catch. It's like, no, I'm not doing it. I've read enough fables, I've seen enough animated films where this does not go well. It did not go well. And for that reason, I'm out. Hell's Foxes. If you could build and live in any kind of house without worrying about money, what would it look like? It'd probably be near the beach. I've always been a fan of the houses the hobbits live in. So, but then again, I like a nice view. So maybe like the entrance is like that, but maybe there's like a tower at some point where I could like go up into the tower and like, oh, look at that, look at the, look at the beach. And obviously it would be tough because for people that live at the beach, the salt and the wind coming in from the ocean really like just annihilates paint. And if you keep the windows open, it'll just come flying into your house and mess up everything. So there are minuses to being that close to the beach. And parking. Parking is a big thing. I like to have friends over to my house, as you might have noticed, so it's gotta have good parking. Safaki, imagine you have an audience consisting of 5-year-olds, and you have to tell them a story. What story do you tell them? This is a prime opportunity to make fun of our audience, but I won't. The Pinocchio. I don't know if I do a good job telling the story of Pinocchio. But yeah, Pinocchio, there you go. It's one of my favorite fables. The concept of just taking a thing that is not alive, bringing it to life, and then giving that thing value has resonated for me personally a lot in my career. Matt B. What is your favorite piece of music from Final Fantasy VI? I know you referenced Dancing Mad as your favorite boss theme recently. Was it my favorite? I guess. But I wonder if you enjoy dance parties to Techno de Chocobo, or practicing your freestyle skills to Mog's theme. Maybe you weep uncontrollably to Forever Rachel, or get pumped up by blasting Battle to the Death, also known as The Fierce Battle. I could be off base though. Maybe the amazing masterpiece of prog rock that is Dancing Mad is all you need from the game. Personally, I am continually impressed by the ending theme, Balance is Restored. It is a nearly 22-minute epic featuring character themes and other musical motifs from throughout the game. Ding, 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 we have a winner. Balance is Restored. I didn't know it actually had a name, which was great. Yeah, find me, and you probably can. I just don't know it off the top of my head, but there cannot be many games on the Super Nintendo that have a 22-minute epic not montage, that's video, medley of almost every theme from the game in the finale of that game. I remember first beating Final Fantasy VI and being like, this thing just goes and goes. Like, this ending just will not quit. Fun fact, I recorded an arrangement of said song, and it took way too much time and energy, but good gravy was it satisfying to complete. On the points for saying good gravy. On the heels of that afterthought bonus question, or main question you feel like this would be more interesting, is there a piece of work you finished almost out of spite, as in the actual progress of the job felt overwhelming and defeating, but you kept on working on it, if for nothing else, to get that monkey off your back? Every retrospective I've ever done. Inevitably gets to a point where it's just like, please, I want to be done with this. Doesn't matter how into the franchise I am, it's just like, I know I just finished Souls, and I don't want people to having negative opinions of the Souls retrospective because I very, very much enjoyed working on that. But I'll reference Final Fantasy because I worked on the Final Fantasy retroed, and and that was 13 episodes. That was like 2 hours and 40 minutes at the end of the day, and yeah, I was ready for that to be done. Oh boy, by the time I finished that. Kevin Neal, I hate the heat, lines, and kids, but my wife wants to go to Disneyland. Will I survive? Please advise. Yes, bring suntan lotion, bring water, if you have phones, get a lot of games ready on your phone, specifically if you're going with your wife. Co-op stuff, Amanda and I like to play Boggle. Hearthstone is also really great in Disneyland lines. I recommend a big hat. If you bring a cap, it's not going to do it. I recommend, you're going to look goofy, but you're Disneyland, who cares? You're not going to look like Goofy, you're just going to look goofy. But a really big hat is nice. You'd be surprised how much that can help. And what they've gotten pretty good at knowing where those hotspots are in the park. You want to look out for misters. There's a lot of great restaurants that just the whole time, and so that can be really nice and refreshing. You said my wife wants to go to Disneyland. If any of you have Disneyland questions, always please reference where you live, because that's huge. If you're flying into town and you pick the right time, keep in mind if Disneyland's also really great at night. So a lot of times what Amanda and I will do, granted we do this because we're annual pass holders, but we will go in the afternoon. We'll show up at Disneyland around 2, so we get a little bit of heat stroke, and then things cool down and the lights come on, and Disney at night is just the best. But obviously you don't want to spend, you know, $140 to just go to one park and then just go for like 8 hours. Yeah, suntan lotion, be sure to drink lots of water, and get a big old hat. They certainly sell them there, but you can probably get them cheaper elsewhere. DBZ Donovan. Recently, I've been toying with the idea of writing reviews for video games and anime manga, but I've never written anything remotely close to a review before. They would be super amateurish and purely for fun, but I wanted to see if you had any basic tips for someone interested in making that kind of content. It doesn't have to be specific at all. Even a general idea of the process you go through to turn your thoughts and feelings into review would probably be a big help. Sure! This is kind of work-related, but, you know, is not like the patron-related. This is something specific, and I'm going to speak to my personal appearance from reviewing a game. 1, go with your gut. Sometimes, you know, your head can get ahead of your heart a little bit, and that can kind of be when I'm ping-ponging at the end of a review between a couple scores trying to analyze something. There's always like, you know, my heart. Well, I was gonna say my heart wants to make the score higher, but sometimes it changes. Sometimes I'm like looking at a list like, wow, there's a lot in this game, and I'm like, yeah, but this is not fun, you know? Like, I just didn't have a good time in this game. It's kind of, yeah, I don't want to call it specific games. I was almost about to, but I don't want to draw those comments. But at the same time, sometimes there is not a lot of stuff on paper. Sea of Thieves, great example. I didn't review that game, and I don't think I've played enough of it to give it a review score. But Sea of Thieves might be something that doesn't have a lot going on paper. PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds doesn't have a lot going on paper. It is a very simple concept to understand. It's easy to learn, tough to master. But the actual play experience, the feeling you get when playing that game, the emotions, and the variance, I guess, of the width, the breadth of those emotions can be fairly extreme. You know, the different types of experiences that you have. And so there is no one way to review one thing, and certainly reviewing games for as long as I have, it is something I feel that I've gotten better and gotten a clearer vision of how to do it. But it is kind of like, you know, riding a bike. Like, if I haven't reviewed a game in a long time, I kind of have to, like, you know, dust off that part of my brain and be like, oh yeah, where's my head at when I think of this stuff? Obviously, you know, if Bloodworth is in chat, he would tell you to notes are great. Always leave notes when you're looking at stuff. It helps with games because games can be super long and you could forget kind of your thoughts early on. But when you're done with it, really try to go with your gut, because there's no right or wrong answer to a review. You're really just offering your perspective. That's what people want. And so focus more on what your perspective is, what your process was, where you ended up at the end of the experience of absorbing that material, and less on what's the right answer to the question of, is this a good game or not? James Vest, I was wondering, how have your views on taxes changed over the years? From being an employee to being someone who is partly in charge of his own company, partly being the operative word there. I don't want any details, just in general, how has the change changed your view on taxes? If you can't or don't want to answer this, that is perfectly fine. My dad was an accountant. Amanda does way more of the grunt work on taxes than I do, and I will forever be grateful to you, Amanda, for doing that. Thank you so much. Amanda just wrapped that up, and we just got all the paperwork back, so we're going through and signing all this stuff. But I don't like them. I don't like, you know, doing them. I like that taxes help pay for things. I believe in kids should have good educations. I believe kids should have textbooks that aren't 20 years old. I believe that hospitals should have the absolute best equipment. I believe that our roads should work. I am okay with my money going toward that, and I have seen the sentiment from a lot of people as I've gotten older and their paychecks have gotten bigger and their lifestyles have gotten grander, are like, oh, I'm in a tax bracket now and this sucks. I've never gotten to that point where I'm like, I mean, I certainly don't enjoy tax time. When that bill comes, I'm never like, sure. You know, it sucks every year, but at the same time, I'm never like, there's something drastically broken in the system that needs to be addressed. And yeah, I guess we'll leave it at that, because that's a whole nother issue that I'm sure a lot of people have some hot opinions on. What has Rick Hogue got to say about taxes? It's not currently on my screen, but he's coming. Ihi Yovak, who does not let me know how to pronounce Ihi. I gotta know. Ehi? Ihi? E-H-I-E. Ihi? Ihi? Oh, he did! Pronounced Ihi. Yeah, I got it right! Yay! We did it! Ihi Yovak. Explaining my name can lead into my question. Yovak was the last name I made up for my Sims family. Ihi, pronounced Ihi. Your first attempt was correct. He even left time code. Came from my Star Wars Galaxies character. I had Yovak, but characters had to have two names, so I let the game randomly generate the first name. Thus, Ihi Yovak was born, and he was a Zabrak Terraskasi master, and one of the first Jedi on the Gorath server. Wow, if I can toot my own horn for a second. God, I missed that game. If any of you are not aware, becoming a Jedi in the original, before they, oh, what is it called? I don't even remember the change that they did. It was, broke the game, basically, but in the original Star Wars Galaxies at launch, becoming a Jedi was very, very hard. More work than I've ever put into not only a video game, but an MMO. Anyways, my question pertains to Star Wars. Solo comes out in a little over a month, and I don't care. I have no desire to see that movie other than as my duty as a Star Wars fan. This is my favorite media franchise. I will argue that it is the most influential piece of fiction since Shakespeare. Wow. I'd say Lord of the Rings. Or even Dungeons & Dragons. Well, Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings inspired Dungeons & Dragons. And if you ask me, it's dying. Star Wars is dying is a hot take. The movies are made by a committee that values money over originality, and creativity, and the video games are suffering a similar fate. That I agree with. The Star Wars video games I do not think are in a good place right now. Very, very frustrating place for me with Star Wars video games. Even though the latest Ewok expansion for Battlefront, I think is dead on the money, man. The like, Ewoks hunting you, a horror level with Ewoks and Stormtroopers, I think is really great. And they're having fun with it, so it's like, finally, have fun with Star Wars, please! Like, they think, like, having fun with Star Wars is by rigidly bringing you the prequels. And you're like, no, have a level where we just slaughter Gungans. Have a level where Vader is pink. Stop it. Like, please, let us have fun with this. You have the license. You can do whatever you want. It's video games, man. Stop being... Save the serious stuff for the movies and the comic books and the TV shows. Just, you know, go nuts with video games. Come on. My only hope for Star Wars rests in Respawn's game. Don't do that. Don't put all of your hopes with one video game, because that game will probably get canceled. With Disney at the helm, I've kind of given up on the movies. Ouch. But once EA loses the Star Wars license, do you think there's a chance we'll get good Star Wars games again? Will we ever get a game that competes with the greats like TIE Fighter, Jedi Outcast, and KOTOR? I think more than Star Wars, you're talking about licensed games. I mean, how many licensed games do we get like that? How rare is something like Spider-Man, you know, that like is not tied to something, is not trying to hold something else up, you know, is not like beholden to another part of the franchise that like, well, I hope that's good, because then if it's not, that game will suck. Those things are extremely rare. Doesn't matter if it's Marvel or Star Wars or whatever else Disney owns. So I think that's just, yeah, I think it's a sign of the times. I think we're past the era of Jedi Outcast, KOTOR, and TIE Fighter, unfortunately. Boy, there's a lot going on here. I don't think Star Wars is dying. I think it's stronger than ever. I think your interest is dying. I think this might be a bad time for the fans of the original content of Star Wars. I don't think the committee values money over originality. I think there's a lot of original stuff going on. Maybe that original stuff isn't necessarily happening in the movies, but there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the comics. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the books. I think the originality will come as time comes, you know, as we go through time and we give them a little more space to breathe and experiment. You know, look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, when that first started, you know, we got very little literal interpretations of Thor, of Iron Man, of who were the three? What were the other characters that we got? I mean, obviously we're getting Black Panther and stuff like that, but like, what were the other big franchises? What are the characters I'm thinking of? We never got a Hulk movie, technically Incredible Hulk, but it didn't have Ruffalo in it. But then now we're getting Black Panther. Then we got Ant-Man. Now we got Thor Ragnarok. Now they're really, really having fun and doing goofy stuff. And what's frustrating about Solo is you're like, it's not original. And Solo, I'm not going to say Solo's original, and I'm not going to say Solo's not a cash grab, because it clearly is, but at the same time, they are experimenting. Solo is very different from any other Star Wars film we've ever gotten. You know, like, to focus just on one character. It is the X-Men Origins Wolverine of the Star Wars universe. And that they might get burnt a little bit on that. And it might be good for them to get burnt on it. Or the movie might end up being good. I don't know. I think... whether it's good or bad, I think Solo is good for Star Wars because it's good to experiment with focusing on a single character and seeing how that goes. And seeing if people care, if that'll make a good movie, seeing that, like, if, you know, now that Episode 8 was so heavy and Episode 8 dealt with so many big themes that did not sit well with a lot of people. And then after that, we get Rogue One. Rogue One is heavy. Rogue One, there's a lot of drama in that film. And then we get Solo. And Solo, like, I don't know. On one hand, I think you could be disappointed being like, Solo doesn't answer all the questions I've always wanted to have about Han Solo, or it's frustrating that they're working on Solo and not maybe adding light to other characters like Obi-Wan. I know a lot of people are pining for that that desert nomad Obi-Wan film with Ewan McGregor, but at the same time, I'm kind of ready for a dumb popcorn flick Star Wars movie. I'm kind of ready for just a Star Wars movie. I go and, like, while I'm in the seats, like, getting ready for the movie to start, I'm not my heart's beating. Like, I hope they get this right, you know? Like, I'm kind of ready for the stress to be taken off of a Star Wars product and for me to just enjoy it for being dumb and goofy and sure, make whatever decisions you want to make, add whatever you want to Han's backstory. Han's backstory is not integral to the Han that I like, you know. I don't need that. Oh, that's how he and Chewie met. You know, it's not that important for me. So I'm with you where I I don't care about a lot of things with Solo, but I am excited to see that film. Anthony Moss, I've been playing Shin Megami Tensei, and it's made me place a lot of thought into the place of the player's decisions and ethics in the experience of the game. The same can likely be said about the Telltale games, which constantly put the player in the place of the decision maker. Do you think these games, which focus on a lot of morals and ethics, hold a different place in games as a culture? Or should they be treated the same way as other games, no matter the supposed level of interactivity? Could dropping Yoshi off a cliff be the same moral decision as choosing to murder someone for one's own survival in The Walking Dead? No. I'm curious, when you say that should these focus... Do these hold a different place in games as a culture? How many places would you, Anthony Moss, say exist in that way? Like, yeah, it's certainly a different type of player that enjoys those types of games. It certainly has a different lineage, you know, growing up in the adventure genre, starting with your King's Quest and Secret of Monkey Islands of the past. And I think what Walking Dead kind of introduced and Telltale into this into the biz is creating these games where it's not just, I decide this, I decide that, and then I move on. I decide that, and then that creates even more decisions that I have to deal with. And so, for me, finishing Batman, it's not just that I made that decision back in the day, and now where that's left, I made the decision, and that forced me to make another decision to possibly reverse what I had done before, realize the error of my ways, and go back on it. In one case, I really pissed off Gordon after making one decision, and I was like, I don't want to do that. But yeah, I don't know. I think you might be putting a little too much, giving it a little too much credit. I think it just is another genre, and it is obviously you're going to be more emotionally affected by something than you are with other games. But yeah, dropping Yoshi off a cliff does not have the same moral decisions. Sometimes you got to drop Yoshi off a cliff to get to that next jump. Sometimes you got to drop Yoshi off a cliff to get that Animal Crossing game. Morgan Mohala, when is the last time you struggled professionally? How often do the struggles come up? How do you plan to get to a place where it is less frequent? 3 questions. Let's answer them all individually. When is the last time you struggled professionally? Yesterday. Well, how often do the struggles come up? Every week. How do you plan to get to a place where it is less frequent? Not quitting. I think that's it. I think it's as simple as that. You gotta struggle. You should add some struggle to your life professionally, because that's how you're going to get where you want to go. That's how you're going to get more control. That's how you're going to get more freedom. That's how you're going to hopefully enjoy the work that you do more. Struggle sucks. Struggle's not fun. In a lot of ways, how do I word this? I grew up in a family that was okay financially. I grew up, my parents were able to pay for my college education, let's put it that way. I did not have student debt. I don't know what that's like. In some ways, I think people that struggle with student debt, that came out of college and had those financial burdens, had a lot of weight on their shoulders. That probably affected them emotionally. That probably affected and still affects them physically. But at the same time, I think those people are built in a different way than I am. I think those people probably, if they were to confront issues that I was to confront, would be like, oh, no problem, done. You know, because I've dealt with that issue before. You go back and it's interesting to go back and look at the movie 300 or read that comic book and just be like, yeah, like I want to be a Spartan, you know, like I want to be, if I was a baby and I cried, throw me in the pit, you know, like I want to be the best me I can possibly be. That's kind of what the themes are in God of War, you know, where it's just like, yeah, I'm beating you up, but I'm doing that so that you can be a stronger person. And so I think struggle puts, I was gonna say puts hair in your chest, but some people don't want hair on their chest. Bjorn Haraldsvik, Yakuza 6 is out soon. What are you playing this week? I'm playing sleeping more at night. When I'm done with God of War, I'm not going to play something for a while because I was not planning on playing God of War, and then I started playing God of War, and now it's all I can think about. Dominic Brown, I got to get your take on Final Fantasy X. I feel like the Allies speak fondly of most of the other titles, but Final Fantasy X is in a corner, alone, crying. It's my personal favorite game. Not only Final Fantasy game, favorite game. Excuse me, the first game to ever make me cry, laugh out loud. We all know the scene. And 100% on my PS2. The save file is still on my memory card today. With that said, don't hold back, I gotta know, even if you hate it. I don't hate Final Fantasy games, even 13. I don't hate it. I would hate 13 if 13 stagnated. You know, if 13 was like, exactly like 12. You know, like 13 was weird. They made some strange decisions. It was very linear, but the battle system is fun. The battle system is very interesting. I think there's pluses and minuses to every Final Fantasy game. That's why Final Fantasy is just fascinating to study as a franchise and explore all of the different changes that they made over the years and the decisions why. I have not played Final Fantasy X. I handed off Final Fantasy X to Mr. Ryan Kramer. He used to work on the Game Trailers website. He used to be on the tech team. Has since moved on to other projects. But I remember when we were working on Final Fantasy, Ryan, I said, hey, does anybody want to play something? And Ryan's like, I love 10. I wouldn't mind replaying 10. And I'm like, great, there you go. There's the game, there's PS2, there's a capture unit, have fun. And so while I experienced the entire story of 10, while I am familiar with the characters of 10, because I cut the retro and wrote those scripts, I don't necessarily have a problem with 10. I think 10 sometimes for me represents an issue that I do have with Final Fantasy, in that I like the MMOs because you get new armor and you put it on and you look different. In Final Fantasy 15 they added different clothes, which I like. I do not know how deep that system goes. But 10 for me is a little frustrating because I think 10 is a little bit of style. It sounds like you're baiting me for negative comments, so I will give you one. It is a little style over realism. That, like, I remember somebody, I think it was Marco Rosado back at GT, mentioned that, and I don't remember the name of the character, but the mage who's got the ruffles in her coat and the black hair. I think her hair's done up and she's got like a stick through her hair. And I think she's got like a teddy bear that she follows her around or something like that. Man, I'm sorry. Like, what is her name? She's a little bit of attitude. Marco Rosado once brought up the point where you meet her like on a beach, Lulu, you meet her on a beach, like you meet her in a tropical environment, and she's like, hi, I'm in a tropical environment, so that's why I wear this dress. You're like, what are you wearing? It's 90 degrees outside, where are you wearing that? And so that's kind of one of the reasons I distance myself, and I tend to gravitate more towards the Elder Scrolls or when I play, role-playing games, I like more of a Bravely Default or an Octopath Traveler if I'm getting into like JRPGs. It seems weird, but like what people wear, to me, defines a lot of their character. I'm looking at them the entire game. I'm staring at these people in these environments. And so I think sometimes, because of how much better 10 looked and how drastic of a difference it had made going to PlayStation 2, and then all the characters were like, oh, this is my outfit. This is what I always wear. I'm in the freezing cold right now and wearing a tank top. And you're like, all right, that kind of disappointed me. And I know there might be some Final Fantasy fans who are like, really, Jones? You expected them to have different things? I didn't. It's just one of the reasons why I wasn't like immediately attracted to Final Fantasy X. But I can't say much more about Final Fantasy X because I never played it. And just knowing the story, it seems like a great story. I love the loss associated with that story. I love, there definitely is kind of a sadness that pervades. I like how Final Fantasy X begins and then goes back in time. I like that they kind of show an event that you eventually work your way back up to, and so there's this kind of sense of inevitability. I like the journey aspect of 10. I think is something that's missing from the other earlier Final Fantasy games, where you're just kind of constantly redefining, what are we doing, where are we going, why are we going there? And 10 definitely has we're going here for a very specific reason, to do a very specific thing, and it's probably gonna suck when we get there and do that. I like that vibe. That's fun for an RPG. Hopefully I survived that. The goddess is judging you in the background. I'm sorry. Your game's linear. I'm sorry. Robert I. How do you feel about Rockstar releasing an update for GTA 4 that's going to remove a number of songs from the game because their 10-year license agreement is up? What are you gonna do? As far as I could tell, and based on similar update for San Andreas, I believe this update will remove the music on already downloaded versions of the game, PC and consoles, not just copies of the game downloaded from this point forward. Correct. So now's the time to get in there. They might have already done it. It's an interesting. It's interesting. I will say, I'll give you a very short answer and then bring up something that many of you might not think about, but I think about because I play Grand Theft Auto games a lot. I mean, this happens. I think it's fascinating that Rockstar is such a big company that they can pump so many of these songs into their games, and it's just the nature of the business. And it's interesting that they can do it and they're putting the work into it because these license agreements are up. It's fascinating that those license agreements lasted for that long. I wonder if that's just like textbook agreements for music licensing for games when you bring in popular songs, that they're just like, yeah, 10 years or whatever it is. How long has it been? When was that gen? It's got to be, yeah, probably about 10 years. But as far as licensed music and Rockstar is concerned, I have a very unpopular opinion that I've only developed very recently in my life because I noticed it when I was playing GTA 5. And it's because you're driving through, let's talk about San Andreas. Like, you're driving through San Andreas and you're like, oh, I live in Los Santos. And you're listening to the radio and the radio doesn't say Los Santos. Like, the guy's like, you're listening to, like, Radio Los Santos. And then they'll play, like, you know, like Dre or Snoop Dogg, and he says Los Angeles. And you're like, wait, what? Like, what? Contextually, how, what? Like, where was this song written? Is this radio station tapping into another dimension? Like, and I never even thought about that because I was just like, yeah, Guns N' Roses in my video game. Like, I just enjoyed that as a kid. And as I got up and got older, and this just happens, especially for me, reviewing games creatively, your mind starts to wander, and you start to think of all stupid, nitpicky stuff. And I remember playing Grand Theft Auto 3 and not like recognizing any of those songs. And, you know, they had a classical station and I recognized some of the classical music, but there's no lyrics to the classical music. And so you can believe that, you know, music can exist in other dimensions. But like, it is a little weird seeing a billboard parodying the thing I'm hearing the song of. And that it is kind of world breaking for me a little bit. So Kidney05, Jones is overthinking this music thing, LOL. Overthinking things is my job. We are in the overthinking portion of the Cup of Jones show. But, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have licensed music. I'm not saying that you're wrong for enjoying licensed music. I'm just saying that putting licensed music in games like Grand Theft Auto is potentially world-breaking. If you are spending a lot of time building that world up as a parody of the real world, and then having things from the real world in your game that are not a parody. It's interesting. But I mean, you know, there's no way they're going to do Vice City without having a bunch of 80s music in it. People would expect that. They'd want it, and I think the game would be better for it. But just something I didn't think about until I played the last one. Parasite Paladin, the fundraiser announcement video. Have you read the YouTube comments? Very rough. But you like to see criticism, so I thought it might be your cup of tea. On a much lighter note, favorite fast food place for fried chicken? Fast food place. Ah, I missed that. I wrote down Farm Shop, which is in LA. It's great. I don't remember the town that it's in, but or the area, the zip code, if you will. But there, if you look up Farm Shop California, I think farmshopca.com is the website. They do a fried chicken night that is aces. Chick-fil-A is great. We didn't have a lot of Chick-fil-A here in Southern California, and now we got one just down the street. And so I have been to Chick-fil-A. I wouldn't necessarily call that fried chicken. And I have not been to KFC in a long time. Not a big chicken guy. You know who loves fried chicken? You know who loves fried chicken? Amanda Troop. Gustav Strombom. You mentioned John Oliver's show last week tonight, and more specifically the episode about cryptocurrencies during the community showcase stream with Ian. So, I would simply like to know, do you have a favorite segment from the show? And by that I mean the long segment that takes up most of any episode's time. It doesn't necessarily have to be your absolute favorite overall, but could also be the one you thought was the most interesting, funny, or both. Gustav, I'm sorry, I should have looked these up beforehand. I will tell you the type of stuff that I like and what I like about Last Week Tonight. And I was so impressed because I was a huge fan of The Daily Show. I really, really like watching The Daily Show. That show cracked me up. Loved following Jon Stewart's career. And then he leaves. Trevor Noah comes in. Is good. Different vibes. I think it took it definitely took a while for Trevor Noah to kind of find his voice and find what that show is going to be. And I certainly understand and appreciate that it is a different show now. Don't watch Daily Show as much as I used to. Then it comes along Last Week Tonight, and I'm like, John Oliver, you were great when you substituted for John, but I don't know if you can do your own show. And then the thing that really blew me away is when the reason why I brought that up is because like I know about cryptocurrencies, but it was just the way they explained it, the way they like focus on something that not a lot of people are thinking about. It might not be like the topic of the week. They really wanted to deep dive on something that they feel, and so I like those things. Kind of reminds me of retrospectives when we do those, where it's like, oh, this is a lot of information about something that I am not familiar with, and so I respect that show a lot for creating their own headlines, creating their own hashtags. I love what then they put. I will say something that I did get a big kick out of. I loved it when they bought all the wax figures. And then this wasn't like a big important thing that people needed to have an update on, but it did give me a big kick that they were like, you know, Jon Stewart bought one, and there were wax figures of former presidents that were up for sale. And they did a promo of, I can't remember what president, but they had like Laura Linney in it and Tom Hanks and all these famous people that were like talking to was like Van Buren. I don't remember what president it was, but I like when they splurge. I like when they just throw money at something because they're a popular show. One last question, and then we'll have a little bit of an editorial, if I have a voice. El Pollo Loco is very good. There you go. If you're ever in Indiana, the best fried chicken is at an A&W stand in Greensburg that has its own family recipe and gets their chickens from local farmers. All right. Gotta go to Indiana, get some chicken. Amanda is a chicken guy. Yes. Surprised. Harrison Holt McHale. I decided to watch last week's Cup of Jones, seeing as a lot of people were talking about it in response to the fundraiser. I was surprised to hear that you weren't aware of Europa Park in Germany. I thought I'd add some European parks to your radar. Phantasialand is just outside of Cologne, which is great because I think is not GDC, but is Gamescom still in Cologne? They recently added a Klugen area with a multi-launch Intamin coaster called Terran. That's a lot of words. I don't know the definitions of. Absolutely wonderful theming throughout. I recently came back from a holiday with my girlfriend to Port Aventura, about an hour outside of Barcelona. Wonderful park. Has a great B&M coaster called Shambhala. B&M? What does B&M coaster stand for? Oh boy. But I could do with a few dark rides to complement its great selection of flat rides and coasters. Next on my list is Liesberg in Gothenburg. They're due to open a Norse mythology-themed B&M drop coaster. B&M? What is B&M? Somebody's got to help me with this. Called Valkyria, and I absolutely can't wait. A park that I think you'll be very interested in is Tivoli Gardens in Copenhagen. I've been there. I have been to Tivoli Gardens. I was 8, I think. I was 8 or 9 years old when I went to Tivoli Gardens, so it's very hazy, but I have been there. Walt Disney famously visited it many times, that is true, as he wanted to copy the ambiance for his own park he'd be opening soon, Disneyland, California. Disney is even designing a float for Tivoli's 175th anniversary based on It's a Small World. That's awesome. Finally, if you're ever in the UK, pay a visit to Blackpool, where I grew up, home to Blackpool Pleasure Beach. It's a very unique park, right on the promenade, packed to the brim with rides and attractions, including some great wooden coasters. One of them is 95 years old. The big attraction is Valhalla, though, as obviously a Viking-themed water ride, which has been voted the best water ride in the world 3 years on the trot in the Golden Ticket Awards. Okay, we have some potential. B&M is just manufacturer? Oh, okay. But he throws B&M out like I should know what that is. Nobody knows what B&M stands for. None of you are a help. Takeaways from this week: add the PayPal link to our YouTube videos. Potentially to get people to sponsor, or at least think about it. Do betting specials with other YouTube channels if we have the time and energy, and put disclaimers at the beginning or end of promos letting them know that everything you are about to read is subject to change. None of the goals or tiers that you might have seen in this promo video exist anymore. So there we go. There's your episode of Cup of Jones, coming in, as always, at a healthy 2 hours. But don't go away, or maybe go away, because... Hi, I'm Brandon Jones. Let's talk about spoilers. It would not be smart, it would not be smart for me to spend this spoiler discussion about the God of War review spoiling God of War for you. So if you do not want God of War spoiled, I will not spoil God of War for you right now. I'm playing through it right now. It is delicious. So it would... there's actually been a couple times I wanted to go to Twitter and been like, you know what's really great about God of War? No, I won't. So this is more just about spoilers in general, because I thought it was fascinating going into the review for God of War, getting the list, this crazy list from Sony that's like, don't show this, don't show this, only show footage from like 5% of this video game, don't spoil this, don't spoil this. And then Huber obviously having his own opinions about don't want to show this, don't want to focus on this. And so having that mindset, obviously for me as an editor that's used to cutting retros and big features and stuff like that, I want it all. I want all the bosses, all the footage, all the music, all the moments. I want to make the grandest, biggest video that just shows everything you've ever wanted to know about this game. Obviously that's not a review. A review is something that you would be playing before you play the game. So it was interesting going through and was given 14 clips by Mr. Michael Huber. I ended up not using clip 14 in its entirety. So a lot of people have this vision in their mind of us just, carefree, haha, let's all the scenes from God of War in our review. I had a whole clip. There was a boss, a enemy character that is on the back of the box. On the back of the box, actually two. There are two enemy types that I did not put in the God of War review because we didn't want to spoil it, that are on the box art. If you flip the box over and see screenshots, like there's two moments. There are characters that were in the advertising of the trailers, that were in the advertising for God of War that we did not put in the review. In my opinion, that is a very, very spoiler-free review of God of War. If you don't think it is, I encourage you not to watch our reviews. That sounds like a terrible thing to say. It sounds extremely insensitive, but what's been fascinating me of late are these people that have this weird combination of personality traits that to me seems like it's inevitably going to get them in trouble. These are people that are highly anticipating God of War, very much so. So much so that even seeing one character that was not included in the advertising of God of War, even if you meet that character 10 minutes into your playthrough of God of War, even seeing that character is like table flipping, like how could you spoil that? So you love God of War that much. You are that excited for this game that you do not want even that introduced to you, even though all you know is what that character looks like. You have no idea what that character sounds like. You have no idea what the impact that character has in the story, who that character is, what they're doing, what they want, what their journey throughout this game is going to be. But then you don't have it pre-ordered? Like you didn't already buy the game? Like you're that passionate about the game, but then you're that crazy frugal about what games you're going to buy that you need to go out and consume multiple videos about God of War, that you can't just go to a Metacritic and be like, got it. Or you can't just like, I saw one comment on YouTube that I thought was fascinating, that I highly recommend to people, that they were like, I listened to this review and I thought it was great. Like I didn't watch the God of War review because I don't want it spoiled, but I do like Easy Allies and I like your videos, and I'm assuming a lot of this based on the comment that they made. But and so I wanted that in my life, but I did not want to visually see some environments that I would rather just kind of introduce myself to. So, and I might be preaching to the choir in a lot of this. I imagine I am spicy. I imagine a lot of people that are tuning in here in Cup of Jones that are supporting us on Patreon are probably like, you do you, Easy Allies. We appreciate the stuff that you do. I don't know if there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, I think you did spoil too much. But it does crack me up, these people who are like day one on the review embargo. They're like, I'm here to, I don't know, reconfirm this decision that I had already made for myself because I'm clearly just madly in love with this series, and yet angry at anybody that shows me a thing that I haven't seen before. That seems like that happens to you a lot. That seems like that person that was complaining about that probably spends a lot of time doing that online, because it seems like almost every review that you would watch. It's interesting comparing cutting Far Cry to God of War. Because there's a shot in Far Cry where I show the map, and then in the map I show these three characters. I even named them, these three sons of, these three children of the central villain of that game that are controlling these three separate quadrants on the map. So there's the game right there, basically. It's, you take these three people down and then you go after Joseph. And then you get the God of War review where it's like, here's one person, not telling you their name, not telling you what they're doing, and not showing you. I'm just literally like, oh, there they are, and it's like, like one of 50 potentially characters. I haven't finished the game, but one of many, 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 many people that you meet in this game that I'm just showing you for the first time, as opposed to this Far Cry review where it's like, you're probably seeing every enemy type that you're going to see in this game and all of this footage. So I say this not because I expect those people to change, or I say this not because those people are like, darn those people, and why are they like that? Like, I imagine there's people like that on I imagine there's also a sense of maturity that comes with that, just kind of an awareness of the work that goes into stuff like that, and part of that comes from our perspective, or understanding our perspective. And so that's like the point of this editorial, is to communicate the process of what we do going into a project like this, reviewing God of War, putting up a video that announces our review score to the world. And this interesting period that doesn't always happen, that Easy Allies is not all of the time included in, which is we feel a lot of pride and honor in being one of the outlets that was chosen to get an advanced look at this game, not only to produce our review, but I am currently playing the game, and the game doesn't come out until Thursday night. And so the carefulness that needs to be employed in being privy to that knowledge, being privy to this game, and how you conduct yourself online. And I think that comes through in the podcasts that we're on, how we handle ourselves in social media, how we handle ourselves live while we're streaming. You know, it can be very easy while you're live, like, oop, can't take that back. I just said that online. And the guards that we have to put up. And I gotta admit, it can be frustrating to see these things coming a mile away and to basically just telling everybody across the board. I really gotta hand it off to Michael Huber, experiencing some of the big moments that I've experienced. I cannot believe he didn't spoil it for us. I cannot believe he didn't just offhand at least tease some of the incredible things that happen in this game. And, you know, seeing this stuff coming, knowing that we're gonna have a good over a week, you know, just to kind of sit and stew in this amazing world of this video game and not really, you know, be able to tell what's going on to other people, and then see people in this video that we produced being like, well, I guess you just don't care about spoilers. It's like, we care very, very deeply about spoilers. There's no we get a list of stuff from the publishers that says, please don't put this stuff in the video. So in that way, there are guidelines. So it does crack me up when people are like, you spoiled that. And it's like, well, according to Sony, we didn't. So I don't know what to tell you. Like, if you're angry at us, go after Sony, because we put stuff in that review that they said we could. And there were even many elements that they said we could that we still didn't, because it was just unnecessary, you know? I think the video could still have impact without that stuff. And so I just want to communicate that there is a consciousness, there is a desire, we strive here at Easy Allies not to spoil this stuff for you, because one of the things that is really important to me as a person, actually, it was a very interesting conversation that I had with Amanda one time, where she read some article or heard a TED Talk where somebody was describing how to discover your purpose in life. And a lot of it had to do with, what do you want to do with your life? And that's not just like, what job do you want to have, or what activities do you find amusing, but like, what do you enjoy doing that your job provides you? And one of the things that I settled on, and I think about it a lot, is I enjoy helping people enjoy entertainment more. I enjoy it when I enjoy telling someone to buy a big hat when they go to Disneyland. I enjoy possibly changing somebody's mind before the Solo movie comes out that's very frustrated with where we currently are in the Star Wars universe, and hopefully letting them see this art that they're experiencing in a new light. That brings me a great deal of satisfaction, knowing that, hey, I didn't know about this thing. Hey, I just finished Dragon Quest Builders. It was great. Thanks for that recommendation. Hey, I didn't know about this video game, and I checked it out, which is exactly what I just said, and I'm repeating myself. And that, I feel, brings me to a lot of the decisions that I make in my career, and speaks to a lot of the paths that I want to take, whether that comes from actually just creating art that people enjoy, that maybe speaks to other type of art that they enjoy, or very specifically reviewing things. And so I take reviews very seriously, and I take those comments very seriously. And I think there are times in the past where people have said, hey, you spoiled that, and I was like, yeah, I did. You're right, I did. That was bad. I'll take that back. There are a couple times, specifically in Easy Allies on podcasts, where I've said something and then gotten DMs or tweets from people that are like, come on. I'm like, you're right. You're totally right. That was, I overstepped my bounds. I will learn from that and never do that again. because I think there is a resentment in the games community from this kind of casualness that people seem to have when they're in this kind of prestige that some of us have because we are given early access to these games. That can be incredibly frustrating for people that want to play them. And so I think people look to people that are, I think viewers look to content creators' position when they are given this advanced access and kind of have a chip on their shoulder that kind of will watch something and be like, all right, what's your opinion? And they're kind of ready to be angry because I resent the fact that you have this game and I don't. And I am very sympathetic to that that take. I can definitely understand where that comes from. There are times when I've definitely been in that boat and have been either not having the time or the resources or the capacity to enjoy something that I want to enjoy, and then watching other people enjoy it without me sucks. And so I understand that that can breed anger, that can breed resentment, and then that can be communicated and expressed in the frustration of spoilers. But I assure you that that is something that we care about, and there is no way of all of the comments and all the stuff that we got, I have, and especially after putting several hours into God of War, I have no regrets about the video that we put up. I do not think it ruins your experience of God of War. I think that almost anyone, if not everyone, who left a "how dare you spoil that" moment comment on YouTube will then play God of War, finish God of War, go back and look at that review and kind of chuckle to themselves and be like, all right, okay, I'm sorry. I see that, like, this might have seemed like the world, but I assure you, I even chuckled at some things we said in that review that I was like, oh, Huber really wrote that in a specific way to be like, yeah, you know, this part's this, and it's so much more. That's a big game. There's a lot going on there. I will shut my damn mouth right now so I don't get myself in trouble, and encourage all of you, because I am not somebody who needed God of War in their life. That was a game I was planning maybe to play this summer, but watching that review, seeing those moments, even watching just the small percentage of that game that I did the review, I was like, oh boy, we got a real winner on our hands. I gotta check this game out. And I encourage you to do so as well. It's at the end of this week, and that is the last you will hear from me on God of War before launch. Obviously, there's the disclaimer that I need to put on absolutely every opinion that I have in Easy Allies, which if you're still resentful, if you're still angry that we showed something that you want that we didn't want us to show, I'm sorry. I think the most honest response I can give to you is, welcome to Easy Allies. As far as reviews are concerned, we want our reviews to be big. We want our reviews to be epic. The God of War review got the most views out of any review we've ever done. I think that is in part to, obviously, the timeliness of it, the access that we've gotten, the access that we got, which is largely due in part to Daniel Bloodworth, who spends many hours a day communicating with these publishers and developers, getting access to these games and explaining to them what we are going to be doing, what we have done with coverage of their games. That is in part to the wonderful script and the passion that you can feel coming through with Michael Huber's words, and the care and attention that I gave to that video. I started cutting it on Sunday. I cut it a little bit on Monday of last week. I finished it up on Wednesday, and we got it up Wednesday night for that very early Thursday morning embargo. But I'm not gonna. We don't make boring videos, or we don't try to here at Easy Allies. We want to make something exciting, and a lot of times that comes from showing you these exciting moments in the games in an effort to sell you. The funny thing about spoilers is it's on a spectrum. If you thought something was spoiled, you are on one end of a spectrum in the viewership of that video. The other end of that spectrum, and another criticism that we got very frequently on that review is, oh, so there's only 2 boss types? And you're like, no, there are so many boss types in this game, but we're not going to show you all of them. And so on the other end of the spectrum, you have people who thought we didn't show enough, who thought, this is it? This game, this amazing game you're talking about, there's just forests? Like, no, there's a lot more. But, you know, we don't want to show you that stuff, and I want to sell it and set it up in a way that even suggests more, that you can even tell we're holding back on, we are talking about some things and not necessarily showing them because that would be spoilery. And so we gotta try to find that middle sweet spot where, yeah, some people are gonna think we spoiled too much, and yeah, some people are gonna think that we didn't show enough. But to me, that seems like the place that we wanna be. So I'm happy to be there. And thank you for everybody for the viewership, for supporting us to get to this level where we are able to cover a big game like that in this big way. Look forward to more coverage. you can check out if you don't care about spoilers, or I'm not saying that they spoil stuff, but if you saw our review and you that still didn't spoil the experience of enjoying God of War for you, then you might enjoy the conversation that was had on Frame Trap. If you want to hold that off for after you finish the game, I can certainly understand that. And there will be more coverage of God of War coming soon from Easy Allies. That is not just me talking about spoilers, but there we go. Sophie is the final boss. Kenny, why did you spoil that? I mean, I had that spoiled for me, that, you know, you finally get to Valhalla at the end, and there's Sophie up on the mountain, and of course you can't kill Sophie, so Sophie kills Kratos and eats him. And then Sophie becomes the next character. So I'm really interested to see, you know, in the next God of War 2, you know, kind of this like Okami vibe with Sophie with the axe kind of running around. More melee focused, not so much ranged. I'm done. I love all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in to Cup of Jones. I just half watch and full listen to video reviews. Okay. So yeah, hopefully you can jump here in the comments and see how other people absorb stuff. I'm sure we will have comments this week for Cup of Jones for next week that talk about their experience and how they dodge spoilers and how they feel about that stuff. It's very moist in the bottom of my cup. I wonder if it's possibly leaking down there. I hope not. It still holds water. It still does its job. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you later tonight. Cheers.